Chapter 872. The War Soul Sword passed through Nicholas's body without any hindrance, as if it was passing through air. Moreover, there was no blood. On the contrary, Nicholas was safe and sound. He smiled and looked at Tang Zheng with ridicule, as if he was mocking him. He leisurely said, "I said you can't kill me." Tang Zheng's head shook. What kind of magic was this? Nicholas was sitting in front of him. It was so real that he could reach out and touch him. Why couldn't he hurt him? He suddenly had an idea. He suddenly raised his head and looked around. Finally, he saw a few small devices around the roof and suddenly realized, "Full system projection, you are fake." Tang Zheng was filled with regret. He didn't realize that the person sitting in front of him was just a projection and not Nicholas himself. No wonder he was so fearless. As for him himself, he might be far away from here. Too cunning. Tang Zheng secretly hated and simply took back the War Soul Sword. "What do you want?" "I have already pointed out 2 paths for you. You can choose one of them," Nicholas said with a smile and crossed his legs. "I want to see Sister Mu. I want to confirm whether or not she has been harmed by you." "As you wish." And Nicholas seemed to have already expected Tang Zheng to have such a request. With a snap of his fingers, the television in front of him automatically turned on. Mu Hongyan appeared on the television, but she was tied up and unable to move. Her face was filled with fear. "Sister Mu!" Tang Zheng cried out involuntarily. "Tang Zheng, is that you?" Mu Hongyan's voice came from the television. She looked around. Obviously, she couldn't see Tang Zheng. "Sister Mu, it's me. Don't be afraid, I will save you." Tang Zheng was sure that this was a real-time image and not recorded, so Mu Hongyan was still alive. He just didn't know where she was locked up. Mu Hongyan nodded and gradually calmed down. "I'm not afraid. You must be careful. These people are very powerful." "I know. What about Qing Mei? How is she?" She was in deep danger, but she was still worried about the safety of others. "She's fine. Very safe." That's good, that's good." A relieved smile appeared on her face. Suddenly, the image flashed and disappeared. Tang Zheng shouted that he didn't want it, but it was useless. He, truly affectionate and righteous. "Tang Zheng, do you have the heart to watch such a sentimental and righteous woman die because of you?" Nicholas asked. Tang Zheng's expression was gloomy and uncertain. If something really happened to Mu Hongyan, Nana would become an orphan. When he thought of Nana's sad expression, he would not be able to redeem himself even if he died 100 times. Moreover, Mu Hongyan herself was also extremely important to him. The two of them could be said to have gone through life and death together. Back then, when they fell off the cliff and into the 100,000 mountains, he couldn't move at all. It was as if he was paralyzed. It was Mu Hongyan who took care of him in every possible way that allowed him to recover so quickly. Later, Mu Hongyan wholeheartedly helped him to take care of his business. It could be said that she poured all her efforts into it. Therefore, no matter what, Tang Zheng couldn't leave her in the lurch. "Have you thought it through? Such a good person died because of you. Do you have a conscience?" Nicholas asked step by step. "Do you have a conscience?" Tang Zheng asked back. "Now I'm the one asking you, not the other way around." Tang Zheng's expression gradually became firm. He said, "Fine, I promise you. I will kill myself, but you must let her go." "Righteous as the sky, ha!" Nicholas laughed with satisfaction. "But why should I believe you? You can only believe me." "No, I absolutely cannot believe you. A person like you already has no conscience. You will definitely not believe what you say. I am a fool to believe you. I must make sure that she is safe and sound before I kill myself." Tang Zheng stubbornly said. "You have no right to negotiate. Then let's go our separate ways. In any case, even if I kill myself, you will not let her go, right? That captive has confessed everything. I am very clear about your sinister intentions." Nicholas was silent. He looked sharply at Tang Zheng, as if he wanted to see through his determination. But after looking at him for a long time, he was sure that Tang Zheng's words were not false. If they really went their separate ways, then all the work he had done would be useless. In the end, he still had to face Tang Zheng one-on-one. This was a situation he absolutely did not want to see. After all, this was Tang Zheng's base camp. If the two sides confronted each other face to face, the people he brought may not be able to gain any advantage. Therefore, if he could force him to kill himself, this would be the best result. Fine, I promise you. But when I let her go, I must see you die. Otherwise, I have many ways to guarantee that I will kill her. Nicholas had no choice but to compromise. Tang Zheng was relieved. His insistence was right. Nicholas's ultimate goal was to kill him. As for the others, they could temporarily retreat. We'll hand over the hostages somewhere else. I'll stay here, Tang Zheng said. When we hand over, I must see you die, Nicholas said with killing intent. Tang Zheng was silent for a moment, then said resolutely, all right. Tang Zheng immediately contacted Yan Padian and told him an address, then told him to go there and pick up Mu Hongyan. As for the rest, it was inconvenient for him to say anything else. After all, his every move was being monitored. Seeing that he did not play any tricks, Nicholas also began to arrange for his subordinates to hand over the hostages. Dozens of minutes later, the television lit up again. On the screen was a commercial plaza with a lot of people. From afar, a few Westerners could be seen escorting Mu Hongyan forward. This was Nicholas's men filming from afar and transmitting it over in real time. Tang Zheng had already seen Yan Padian. He personally took action and walked towards Mu Hongyan and the others step by step. Tang Zheng, in order to make it impossible for you to go back on your word, I made some small preparations. Do you see so many people in the plaza? What do you mean? Tang Zheng suddenly had a bad premonition. If you don't commit suicide, not only will Mu Hongyan die, everyone in the plaza will be buried with you. I've already installed a bomb in the plaza. When the time comes, bang, everything will turn into nothingness. Nicholas laughed sinisterly. You're crazy. Tang Zheng was furious. He clenched the War Soul sword tightly and continuously slashed at Nicholas's body, but this was just a projection, it was useless. Don't be so angry. Didn't I say it already? As long as you fulfill your promise, I won't detonate the bomb and no one will die. You're crazy, why should I believe you? If the bomb really explodes, it will definitely cause an official backlash. Unless it's the last step, I don't want to fight to the death and cause a third world war. Tang Zheng stared at Nicholas, convinced that what he said was true. If he detonated a bomb in the bustling city of the capital, the authorities would definitely investigate thoroughly and give the people an explanation. Even if it was Nicholas, he would not be able to bear this responsibility. Unless it was the last moment, he would definitely not take the risk and take such a risk. So, don't challenge my last bit of patience. Nicholas added. As long as I see that elder sister Mu is safe and sound, I will naturally do as I say. Tang Zheng said helplessly. Then I'll wait and see. On the screen, the two sides were getting closer and closer, both of them extremely fearful of each other. Finally, the two sides approached. Yan Potion's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He snatched Mu Hongyan and protected her behind him. Tang Zheng had warned Yan Padian not to clash with Nicholas's men, so Yan Padian did not attack. The Westerners quickly retreated. Your turn, Nikolai urged. Tang Zheng raised the War Soul sword and aimed it at his chest. The air seemed to have frozen, and the surroundings were terrifyingly silent. Nicholas stared at the screen without blinking, and beside him were two other people, Song Yu and Li Shaoan. Song Yu's expression was a little excited. Her plan this time was finally about to succeed. Tang Zheng, even in your dreams, you would never have thought that you would die in my plan in the end. It was a pity that she couldn't kill him with her own hands. Li Xiaotian's expression was complicated. She had known Tang Zheng for a long time and understood him very well. Seeing that he was willing to sacrifice his life to save others, she couldn't help but be moved. At the same time, she was a little puzzled. Could it be that Tang Zheng really died just like that? According to the High Lord's judgment, it was impossible for him to die so easily. But now that things had come to this, what else could he do? Even though she was quick-witted, she still couldn't think of any way for Tang Zheng to get through this difficult situation. Die. If he really dies, it can be considered as one less big trouble. Although the High Lord will be surprised, he should also be very happy. Li Xiaotian sighed inwardly. He, it seems that we have overestimated him. We always thought that he was very powerful, but it seems that he is also very stupid. He actually sacrificed his life for someone unrelated to him. This kind of person is destined to die. Song Yu said with disdain. Nicholas smiled and agreed, that makes sense. Yu Hua Xia have an old saying, a great man is ruthless. How can such an indecisive person achieve great things? However, killing him like this is too easy for him. My Louis died unjustly, not only Tang Zheng, but also the women by his side. I want them all to be buried with Louis. After he kills himself, I will kill them all. Song Yu's heart turned cold, but she still said with a smile, that makes sense, especially that Yi Dingding, she deserves to die. He was still brooding over the fact that he was unable to catch Yi Dingdang this time. If he had caught Yi Dingdang, it might have been even more exciting. My patience is limited. I will count to 3. If I don't end it, I will detonate the bomb. Nicholas urged. Tang Jing took a deep breath and growled. The war soul sword fiercely stabbed backwards. Blood splattered everywhere as the sword pierced through his chest. He slowly closed his eyes and fell to the ground with a bang, no longer breathing. The few of them looked at the scene of him crashing to the ground on the screen. They were all moved and shocked. The few people who were originally sitting quickly stood up as if there was a spring under their buttocks. Their breathing couldn't help but become hurried. Is he really dead? Li Xiaotian asked with mixed feelings. Whiz. Chapter 873. These 2 words were like the sound of nature, causing Song Yu to almost jump up in joy. He could not hide his excitement as he waved his fists. Tang Zheng is finally dead. Nicholas also smiled as if relieved of a burden, but it was not enough to vent his anger as he said, next, it's time to deal with the women around him. Li Xiaotian's expression was complicated as he looked at the motionless Tang Zheng on the screen and sighed faintly. What? Saint Lady doesn't want him to die? Song Yu's expression turned cold as he asked with an unkind expression. Li Xiaotian coldly glanced at him and said snappily, what does what I think have to do with you? Song Yu choked, but he was unable to refute. In front of the Lord, Li Xiaotian's status was much higher than his, so he did not dare to offend her. Song Yu bitterly smiled and changed the topic. It seems that the people of the island nation are useless. Who said they are useless? Isn't it just right to deal with Tang Zheng's women? Nicholas smiled meaningfully. Song Yu's eyes lit up as he agreed, that makes sense. This group of island nation people are vengeful. Although Tang Zheng is dead, compared to their previous losses, Tang Zheng's death may not be able to make up for all of them. They will definitely not be reconciled. Then let's leak the information to them. A group of island nation monkeys is just right to be cannon fodder. Nicholas said with a smile. Obviously, he looked down on the island nation in his heart. Then what about Tang Zheng's body? Li Xiaoyan suddenly asked. The body is already useless. Then give it to me. I want to use it to lure out Lan Yu. Li Xiaoyan's eyes flashed as he said mysteriously. Lure her out for what? Song Yu asked suspiciously. This group of martial sect remnants has always been a huge threat to us. Now that all of them have gone into hiding, how can we ignore them? If we don't eliminate them as soon as possible, they will definitely become a huge threat in the future. Song Yu's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but sigh at how vicious and merciless this woman was. She didn't even spare a dead person. However, he liked this plan very much. The news of Tang Zheng's death quickly spread. This time, it was real news of his death. Immediately, it was like an atomic bomb had exploded, shocking all the forces in the capital. In the big villa, there was a cloud of worry. Mu Hongyan had already returned safely, but when she heard the news, she was stunned on the spot. Then, she covered her face and squatted on the ground, crying. As a strong woman, she had not cried for many years. This time, she cried her heart out. It was even more painful than stabbing her heart with a knife. It's all my fault. If it weren't for saving me, he wouldn't have sacrificed himself. Tang Zheng, why are you so stupid? How is my life worth doing this for you? Nana was frightened by her mother's actions. She also cried out and laid on her mother's body, sobbing, "Mother, what's wrong? Don't cry, Nana is scared." Cries immediately spread through the crowd, rising and falling one after another. Lan Yu suddenly sat on the sofa, as if all the strength in her body had been sucked out. She shook her head in disbelief. "No, my son won't die, he won't die." Wu and Yi Dingdang had experienced the news of Tang Zheng's death before. Although they kept telling themselves that this was fake, just like last time, they couldn't help but cry. The two of them looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. It was as if they were encouraging themselves and the other, saying, "No, he definitely won't die." Lu Qingmei stood there in a daze. She didn't say a word as tears flowed down her white cheeks. However, Fang Shishir didn't even turn her head as she rushed out, shouting at the top of her lungs, "If I don't see it with my own eyes, I will never believe that he will die." Yen Patin immediately stopped Fang Shishir and advised, "Miss Fang, don't be impatient. This time, the enemy is not only targeting Tang Zheng, but also all of you. If you rush out now, you will only give the enemy an opportunity to take advantage of." The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Even at this time, he did not panic. Tears welled up in Fang Shishir's eyes. She shook her head violently, and tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes. "He is my beloved. If he is alive, I want to see him. If he is dead, I want to see his corpse. I must see him." Yen Patin advised earnestly, "Don't worry, even if I have to risk my life, I will still find Tang Zheng." Fang Shishir shook her head and said, "I'll go myself. If I die, I'll die with him." Even though Yen Patin was knowledgeable and had a firm temperament, when he heard this, he couldn't help but sigh. Princess Anne's expression dimmed, but she did not shed any tears. Looking at the people who were crying, a voice sounded in her heart. "Is he really dead? Back then in the sea, he was so powerful, how could he die? He's my knight." Empyrean Fairy was the calmest. She looked at the crowd indifferently and did not say a word. Bang! Suddenly, the door was pushed open and a person wearing a gray Taoist robe appeared at the door, Yen Qingyi. She swept her gaze across the crowd and said in an earth-shattering manner, "Tang Zheng will not die." "He won't die?" Everyone's attention was attracted. "Really?" Many people hurriedly asked as if they had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. Yen Qingyi nodded firmly, "Yes. He will definitely not die." "How do you know?" Yen Qingyi wanted to say something but hesitated. Her prophecy technique was her biggest secret. If it were to be made public, whether it was to her or to the Yen family, it would be a huge hidden danger. "Is he really not going to die?" Yen Patin also asked anxiously. He knew his daughter very well, she would not spout nonsense. "Father, you should know very well that the scene I predicted back then meant that Tang Zheng would not die," Yen Qingyi said. Yen Patin hesitated. Of course he was clear about this, but the information this time was too accurate, he had no choice but to believe it. "I've predicted a new scene." Yen Qingyi saw that everyone was skeptical, so she clenched her teeth and said directly, "Prophecy." Empyrean Fairy immediately stood up and looked at Yen Qingyi suspiciously. "What do you mean by that?" "I know prophecy." Yen Qingyi spoke the truth. In order to dispel their worries, she had really gone all out. "You know prophecy?" The others were all dumbstruck. This was a legendary divine skill, and she actually knew it as well. Empyrean Fairy looked at Yen Qingyi carefully, but did not feel any energy fluctuations from her body. She could not help but mutter to herself, "Prophecy, there really is a prophecy. How do you know prophecy?" To be able to make Empyrean Fairy so shocked, it could be seen that this prophecy technique was not something an ordinary person could possess. "We are talking about Tang Zheng's problem now." Yen Qingyi did not want to talk about it in detail and changed the topic. "I predicted that he would be reborn." "Really? He can be reborn?" The others were overjoyed. "Sir." Yen Qingyi was very confident in her prophecy and nodded firmly. "Then, does that mean he's really dead now?" Lan Yu abruptly raised her head and asked, seeing blood. Since it was rebirth, then it meant that he was already dead. With that thought, everyone's expressions darkened, especially Mu Hongyan. Her tears were like broken pearls. Tang Jing really had sacrificed himself in order to save her. Yan Qingyi hesitated for a moment before nodding silently. Then hurry up and tell me, what method do you have for him to be reborn? Lan Yu did not want to dwell on this question. He tightly gripped Yan Qingyi's shoulder and asked anxiously. Yan Qingyi had a troubled expression. I don't know either. If you don't know, then what should we do? I think Tang Zheng will be able to turn danger into safety and come back to life, Yan Qingyi said with uncertainty. Even though she had predicted that Tang Zheng would be reborn, she did not know the specific method. It's not difficult for a person to come back to life from the dead. Empyrean Fairy finally spoke. Compared to coming back to life from the dead, she was more interested in Yan Qingyi's prophecy. Back then, Qin Shi Huang was also judged to be dead, but he had left behind a sliver of life. As long as an opportunity presented itself, he would naturally come back to life. She believed that Tang Zheng was the same. He would definitely leave himself a chance to live and use it to deceive the enemy. Hearing Empyrean Fairy's words, the others felt a lot more confident. After all, Empyrean Fairy was the person with the highest cultivation here. Then we must find little Zheng's body. Lan Yu made a prompt decision. Since her son had the chance to be reborn, she did not want her son to lose his arms and legs. Just then, Yan Padian received a call. His expression changed slightly, and said, I just received a piece of news. It is said that tonight, at the peak of the Forbidden City, they will bring Tang Zheng there. The peak of the Forbidden City? Imperial City? Lan Yu asked in surprise. Why did they bring little Zheng there? Yan Padian shook his head. I don't know, but the other party must be plotting something by releasing this news with such fanfare. Maybe it's to lure us there. This is a conspiracy, Empyrean Fairy said. So what if it's a conspiracy? In order to save little Zheng, even if it's a dragon's lair or a tiger's den, I still have to take a look. Lan Yu said resolutely. Mistress, I'll go with you. Wu Dang still did not give in and stood out. I'll go too. I'll go too. The others volunteered themselves, their tones resolute. No, the enemy is plotting something this time. If everyone goes, it might not be a good thing. Moreover, saving someone doesn't require so many people. Lan Yu refused. The strength of these people was uneven. If the enemy really had a scheme and made a move, they might not be able to take care of all of them. Some of them might even be injured, and their lives might even be in danger. Lan Yu naturally wouldn't take this risk. When they heard this, their expressions darkened. Seeing that, Lan Yu eased his tone and explained, This time, we are going to save little Zheng. There are many unforeseen events, so the fewer people there are, the better. Yan Padian agreed. That's true, I will personally go and meet these people. Lan Yu said, Will come with me. The rest of you can stay at home. Empyrean Fairy's interest was completely focused on Yan Qingyi. She stared at her with a burning gaze and said, Let's stay and talk about the prophecy technique. Yan Padian had a difficult expression on his face. Yan Padian also had some guesses about the identity of the Empyrean Fairy, so he nodded towards his daughter, meaning that he could reveal a little about the prophecy technique. Then you must save Tang Zheng. Seeing that they did not have the chance to personally go, the others could only repeatedly remind them. Chapter 874. The night was dark and the wind was strong. A light drizzle began to fall in the capital. The summer heat was carried away by the rain and a cool breeze came, making people feel relaxed and happy. The sky was dark, but for this bustling city, the lights illuminated half the sky and dispelled the darkness. One could vaguely see the majestic imperial city in front of them. The capital was gradually falling asleep and the imperial city was not as noisy as it was during the day. It was especially quiet with only the occasional sound of insects. So. A few sounds of breaking through the air came closer and closer. A few figures flew across the sky and jumped over the towering walls of the palace, entering what was once the center of Hua Xia's power. A few people rushed towards the center of the imperial city, the true Forbidden City peak. With a tap of their feet, they soared into the air and landed on the roof. Stepping on the hundreds of years-old blue tiles, they looked down at the row upon row of palaces as if they were searching for something. How come I don't see any trace of them? They should be here, midnight, at the Forbidden City Peak. Could it be that they hid little Zheng to play with us? No, they wouldn't go through so much trouble just to play with us. These people were obviously Lan Yu and the other two. They first searched outside the palace but did not find any traces of the enemy. Then they came to the Forbidden City Peak. But the time had come, so why did the enemy not appear? Hee, is Madame Wu in such a hurry? A clear voice rang out and a person walked out from the darkness. With a tap of their feet, they also landed on the roof. Li Shan, it's you. Marshall opened her eyes wide and cried out in surprise. So it's the Holy Maiden of Li Palace. Lan Yu had never seen Li Xiaotian before, but this name was not unfamiliar. His heart trembled as even the Li Palace was involved in this matter. Perhaps it was not just that. The Azure Dragon Hall was the real mastermind behind all this. It's me. Madame Wu is truly as beautiful as a fairy. No wonder she was able to capture the heart of the previous head of the martial organization and even gave birth to such a powerful son like Tang Jing. Li Xiaotian said with a smile. Li Xiaoyan, where did you hide my son? Lan Yu didn't want to talk nonsense with the other party, so he went straight to the point and asked. Hehe, you want Tang Jing? There, isn't that him? Li Xiaotian pointed to a spot not far away. In the darkness, it was indeed Tang Jing. Little Zheng. Lan Yu was overjoyed and was about to rush over, but was stopped by Li Xiaoyan. Madame Wu, don't worry. I will hand him over to you. If you rush over, I can't guarantee that my companions will do anything to him. With that said, Song Yu appeared behind Tang Jing. Marshall recognized her at a glance and shouted, Song Yu, it's you. Yen Padian was also shocked. You actually didn't die. How dare you come back? After that battle, the Song family no longer existed. Only Song Yu's whereabouts were unknown. Who would have thought that he would be involved with Li Xiaotian? Song Yu laughed coldly, her sinister face hidden in the darkness of the night, looking even more terrifying. Yen Padian, you colluded with Tang Zheng and destroyed my Song family. Now that Tang Zheng is dead, the next one will be your Yen family. Song Yu said fiercely. Arrogant, to speak such big words. Let's see if you can leave the imperial city today. Yen Padian said. With him in my hands, how could I not be able to walk out? Song Yu proudly pushed Tang Zheng, who was in his hands. He has already been killed by you, what else do you want to do to him? Seeing that, Lan Yu roared hysterically. Li Xiaotian said, Madame Wu, don't be anxious, Tang Zheng is already dead. A dead person should be buried in peace. You don't want to see him tortured again, right? Hehe, as long as you promise me two things, I can naturally let him rest in peace. What condition? Lan Yu opened her eyes wide, her killing intent soaring. The first condition is to tell me where the rest of the martial sect went. Lan Yu was silent. The rest of the martial sect were hiding on the moving island. This was a secret. If they were to tell the other party, then these people would be in danger. Moreover, there were not only people from the martial sect, but also the witch clan. You're not going to say it? Sigh, that's a pity. Tang Zheng has been alone since he was young. I didn't expect that now that he is dead, he won't be able to rest in peace and will be tortured. Li Xiaotian said hypocritically. You're not allowed to hurt little Zheng. Lan Yu quickly stopped him. I'll tell you. Lan Yu thought that the island was always moving. Even if she told them, they might not be able to find the island. For the sake of her son, she had no choice but to compromise. They are on an island in the South Sea, very far from the coastline. That's why you didn't find us. Li Xiaotian suddenly realized, no wonder we couldn't find it even after sending so many people. Hehe, you guys really have a soft spot for islands. You found another island this time, give me the exact coordinates. Lan Yu had no choice but to say a series of coordinates. Li Xiaotian said while beaming, I have no way to verify it for the time being, but I believe that for the sake of Mrs. Wu's son, she won't tell me the truth. Then listen to my second condition. As long as you do it, then Tang Zheng will naturally return it to you. Speak. Kill yourself. Li Xiaotian said word by word, since you two are mother and son, then it shouldn't be bad to die the same way as your son, right? Li Shan, I will kill you. Wu flew into a rage and was about to attack Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian fearlessly crossed his arms, looked at Wu mischievously, and said, "Come and kill me, let's see if you have the guts." Marshal, stop. Lan Yu stopped him. "How is it? Have you decided?" Li Xiaotian asked. "If I die, are you really going to let my son go?" Of course, Tang Zheng is already dead and is no longer of any use. Letting you mother and son reunite on the road to the Yellow Springs can be considered as helping you too. "Alright, I promise you." Lan Yu agreed. "Mistress, you absolutely can't." Wu hurriedly stopped him. Lan Yu's expression was resolute. "Back then, I didn't protect him well, which was why he was left wandering outside. All these years, he has suffered so much, and I have not fulfilled my responsibility as a mother. This is the only thing I can do for him now." Seeing that Mistress had already made up her mind, Wu's tears flowed out. She had never cried as much in her entire life as she did today. She looked at Li Xiaotian with overflowing anger, and secretly swore in her heart, "Li Xian, I will definitely kill you, otherwise, I will not be human." Li Xiaotian's heart skipped a beat when he saw Wu's eyes, but he did not soften his heart, and said, "Stop dawdling, there won't be a miracle." Yen Padian looked at this scene. His heart was willing but his strength was insufficient. The enemy was truly too sinister. He never thought that they would use Tang Zheng to threaten them. This was Lan Yu's Achilles' heel. He had no way to dissuade him. He only muttered in his heart that as long as he saved Tang Zheng later, he would definitely kill these two people to pay tribute to Lan Yu's spirit in heaven. Lan Yu was reluctant to part with it. He looked at Tang Zheng from afar, raised his hand, and resolutely slapped towards the top of his head. Suddenly, something unexpected happened. A white figure appeared out of nowhere, and as fast as lightning, it slapped Song Yu's body with its claw. Bang! A huge force caused Song Yu to fly far away, and he had no choice but to let go of Tang Zheng. "Who is it?" Seeing that, Li Xiaotian turned pale with fright. She jumped down from the roof and rushed towards Tang Zheng. She understood that without Tang Zheng, she would not be able to threaten Lan Yu. Boom! A ball of flame soared into the air, blocking Li Xiaotian's path. She finally saw the small figure behind the flames clearly. Xiaobai. She regretted it so much. So it was this little fellow who had ruined her plans. After Xiaobai's interruption, she had no way of getting close to Tang Zheng, because Lan Yu had already rushed over crazily. She could only dodge in a hurry. Tang Zheng fell limply to the ground. Xiaobai pried open his mouth and stuffed a pill into it. The pill melted as soon as it entered his mouth. Suddenly, Tang Zheng opened his eyes and took a deep breath. A terrifying light burst out from his eyes. Resurrection from the dead? Actually, he did not die. The War Soul Sword had pierced through his heart, causing him to enter a state of suspended animation. However, it left him with a chance of survival. If there was no external interference, he would definitely die if this state continued for too long. Therefore, at the last critical moment, he placed all his hopes on Xiaobai. He gave Xiaobai a 9 transformations soul return pill and told it to find an opportunity to feed him. The powerful medicinal properties of the 9 transformations soul return pill could allow his injuries to quickly recover, thus achieving the effect of resurrection. This was all arranged by him, but it was extremely risky. The scene that Yan Qingyi saw was that he suddenly opened his eyes, and mistakenly thought that he had been reborn. In fact, he did not truly die, so how could he be reborn? Tang Zheng was not an idiot. He was very clear that if he really died, it would cause his enemies to be happy. Therefore, he left a backup plan for himself. Taking advantage of the fact that Nicholas was not paying attention, he summoned Xiaobai from the Sumeru world before he committed suicide. Xiaobai was as fast as lightning, deceiving the heavens and escaping Nicholas's eyes. Even in his dreams, Nicholas would never have thought that so many things would happen right under his nose. Seeing Tang Zheng standing up safe and sound, Li Xiaotian screamed as if he had seen a ghost, and shouted in disbelief, "How are you not dead?" Previously, she had checked Tang Zheng. Indeed, he did not have any breathing or heartbeat, and was even lifeless. However, she did not know that Tang Zheng could absorb a little yin qi on his body and make himself look more lifeless than a dead person. How could she tell clearly? Although Lan Yu, Wu and Yen Padian knew that Tang Zheng would come back to life, they did not expect him to come back to life so quickly. They were extremely happy. Lan Yu covered his mouth in disbelief. "You're finally alive, my son is finally alive." Tang Zheng had previously been in a state of suspended animation, so his hearing was still intact. Therefore, he had clearly heard Lan Yu's words just now. She was actually willing to sacrifice her life for him. This caused him to have mixed feelings. Looking at her excited appearance from afar, his eyes also became gentle. No matter what mistakes she had made back then, she had been living in regret all these years. This kind of torment and torture was already something that no one could endure. Now that she knew of his existence, she had been trying her best to make up for it. This sincere motherly love was undeniable. Chapter 875. Li Xiaotian was startled by Tang Zheng's gaze. She subconsciously avoided his gaze and said, "Li Xian, last time when we parted ways with the island nation, I let you go. Now you come to deal with me, and you even used such a despicable method. Do you really think I won't kill you?" Tang Zheng asked with an ashen face. Li Xiaotian smiled charmingly and said, "Don't be so angry. We haven't seen each other in a long time. It's good to sit down and reminisce." "Who's reminiscing with you?" Marshall took the initiative to berate Tang Zheng. Just now she forced Master's wife to commit suicide. Her intentions are vicious and extremely hateful. We absolutely cannot let her go. Li Xiaoan smiled bitterly. "Marshall, don't be so angry. I was just joking." "I'm not joking with you." Tang Zheng walked towards the other party step by step. Li Xiaotian panicked and subconsciously retreated. She knew very well that with her cultivation, she was not a match for Tang Zheng. Moreover, the other party was not alone. If they fought, she would definitely be at a disadvantage. Tang Zheng stretched out his hand and used the swallowing the heavens technique. A huge suction force appeared in his palm. Li Xiaotian felt that she could not help but approach Tang Zheng. She was shocked and shouted. An iron bow appeared in her hand. The shooting sun arrow was placed on the iron bow and aimed at Tang Zheng. "You found the shooting sun arrow again?" Tang Zheng said in surprise. Back then, when he was fighting with the island nation's imperial preceptor, Li Xiaotian lost the shooting sun arrow. He did not expect her to find it again. Li Xiaotian chuckled, "This kind of divine weapon, of course I won't really lose it. I spent a lot of effort to find it back." "You are so sinister and cunning, you don't deserve to have the shooting sun arrow." Tang Zheng roared, crazily urging his power. The suction force suddenly increased. Li Xiaotian's expression suddenly changed, and she pulled the bowstring. The shooting sun arrow turned into a ray of light and shot towards Tang Zheng. Although it did not have the power of the heaven-shocking bow and was just a normal bow, it still made the shooting sun arrow extremely powerful. Instead of retreating, Tang Zheng moved forward, facing the shooting sun arrow's violent aura. The suction force from his palm completely neutralized the shooting sun arrow's terrifying attack. He closed his fingers and grabbed the shooting sun arrow. "My shooting sun arrows are just short of this one. Let me return it to its rightful owner." Li Xiaoyan was shocked when he saw this. He curled his finger and the shooting sun arrow's attack came to an abrupt halt. It actually turned around and flew back. How could Tang Zheng let her have her way? He increased his power and the shooting sun arrow immediately stopped. Tang Zheng grabbed the tail of the arrow. Ding! With a clear sound, the extremely hard-to-find thread at the end of the shooting sun arrow was cut off, and the shooting sun arrow completely fell into Tang Zheng's palm. "Give it back!" Li Xiaotian cried out involuntarily, but to no avail. So. He shot an arrow, but it was replaced by an ordinary arrow, which was easily blocked by Tang Zheng. Seeing that Tang Zheng was attacking again, Li Xiaotian quickly retreated, but his retreating momentum became slower and slower. The two of them, one advancing and one retreating, had already rushed into the palace. The others also hurriedly chased after them. No one noticed a pair of vicious eyes in the darkness, like that of a snake or scorpion. "Tang Zheng, you can actually come back from the dead. This time, you've seen me, so I definitely won't let you escape again." And the holy maiden of Li Palace? Humph, you dare to look down on me, and even come to Sword Pavilion to ruin my plans. How can I let you succeed? All of you will die. Song Yu gnashed his teeth. His face was bruised and swollen, and there was still blood at the corner of his mouth. He revealed a sinister smile. Everyone's attention was attracted by Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian, so they didn't notice that Song Yu had been slapped into the darkness by Xiao Bai's claw. Suddenly, a remote control appeared in his hand. Without hesitation, he pressed it. Boom! There was a deafening sound, and the earth trembled. A ball of fire soared into the sky, and a powerful shockwave rushed in all directions. A magnificent palace was turned into ruins, and only a raging fire was left. Haha! Song Yu's crazy laughter resounded throughout the imperial city, only to hear him venting out his hatred as he roared loudly, Tang Zheng, you are finally dead. What bullshit, cultivator, under the might of modern technology, isn't there only death waiting for you? It turned out that he had already buried explosives in the imperial city in a frenzy, and even Li Xiaotian didn't know about it. His original purpose was not to deal with Tang Zheng, but to deal with the people who came to save Tang Zheng. Of course, that included Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian was sent to the Sword Pavilion to monitor his every move. How could he sit back and do nothing? However, he couldn't kill her openly, so he could only shift the blame to others. As long as Li Xiaotian died this time, the Lord would not suspect him of doing it. He would only blame it on the enemy. Killing two birds with one stone. Why not? Li Xiaotian's plan was flawless. He probably never dreamed that he would be schemed against by Song Yu, who he had always looked down on. Looking at the raging fire, he was complacent. These people must have been blown into several large pieces. How could they still be alive? Tang Zheng, don't you have many tricks up your sleeve? You can even bring the dead back to life. Let's see how you'll survive this time. There was no more movement in the fire, but the capital was awakened by the explosion. This was the most important place in the capital, where the core of power was located. An explosion had actually occurred. Moreover, it was in the imperial city. The impact was too great. Only the sound of sirens could be heard in the dark night. People and cars rushed over from all directions. Without a doubt, the officials would be thoroughly enraged by this matter. Song Yu's lips curled into a cold smile. This is what it means to make a big move. I'll let you all see what I, Song Yu, am capable of. Of course, what he did could not be made known to the public. Otherwise, not only would he be hunted down by the Azure Dragon Palace, even the government would not let him go. Then, he would have no place in this world. He was about to escape when suddenly, an earth-shattering roar came from the sea of flames in the palace. Song Yu sat down on the floor with a terrified expression on her face. She cried out in panic, "What is that sound?" Just as he finished speaking, the continuous roar became even louder. The sound shook the sky. The sound waves spread out in all directions with the fire as the center point. The raging fire was extinguished in an instant. It was extinguished. The fire was extinguished in front of Song Yu's eyes. This was more immediate than any fire extinguisher in the world. Especially the anger and majesty contained in the sound. It made his heart beat like a drum and he almost couldn't breathe. This seems to be the legendary dragon's roar? He muttered to himself. However, he felt that this was too inconceivable. It was simply impossible. Dragons were things of legend. Perhaps they were simply made up and did not exist in this world. His mind was in a mess. He sat on the floor and was unable to calm down for a long time. This was indeed a dragon's roar. The dragon's roar of a five-clawed golden dragon. Just now, Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian were fighting fiercely. Just as Li Xiaotian was about to be captured, suddenly, an explosion rang out. Tang Zheng shouted loudly, but it was already too late for him to escape. Moreover, there were so many people here, even if he escaped, what about the others? However, at the critical moment, he did not completely panic. He suddenly remembered that under the palace, wasn't it the place where the five-clawed golden dragon was imprisoned? That place was probably the safest place to avoid this explosion. In fact, this thought had been thought of in a flash, so his movements were extremely fast. Before the power of the explosion had completely affected them, he had activated the array formation of the palace. In the blink of an eye, they had moved from the palace to the long passageway below the imperial city. Then, an even more intense explosion sounded. Fine dust fell from the top of his head, and even the soles of his feet shook a few times. However, he managed to stabilize himself in the end. Only then did the others react. They opened their eyes wide and looked around. The space here was not big. It was a long passageway, and the light was very dim. "Where are we?" Lan Yu was the first to ask. "Below the imperial city," Tang Jing replied. "So there's such a place under the imperial city. I've lived in the capital for more than half my life. How come I didn't know?" Yen Patian said in surprise. Tang Jing laughed. Other than the emperor and the person who had secretly trapped the five-clawed golden dragon, the others had probably been silenced at that time. As for the emperor and that person with remarkable abilities, they were no longer in this world, so naturally, no one would know. The top of our heads is intact. How did we get down?" Lan Yu was the first to discover a flaw, and asked curiously as he looked at the stone slab above his head. The others also raised their heads to look. Their heads were indeed safe and sound, and were not affected by the shockwave of the explosion at all. The key was that there was no other way out, so why did they come to the imperial city from the top of the palace in an instant? Tang Jing did not hide anything and said, "There is a formation here. I activated the formation, so we came down." "So you already knew about this place?" Yen Patian was speechless. He was a native of the capital, but he did not know as much as a foreign monk like Tang Jing. Tang Jing did not hide anything and nodded. "Yes, I knew about it a long time ago, but this place is extremely secretive and involves many confidential matters, so I did not announce it to the public." "What secret?" Yen Patian asked curiously. Before Tang Jing could answer, Wu spoke first. "Why is there an explosion?" Tang Jing's expression turned cold and said, "It must be Li Shan, that sinister and cunning woman. No, she wouldn't be so stupid as to blow herself up as well." Lan Yu shook his head in denial. "Song Yu." Tang Jing and Yen Patian shouted at the same time. The two of them looked at each other and had a new understanding of this young master Song. He was truly too vicious and merciless. Even his accomplice, Li Xiaotian, was not spared. He had created such a huge explosion in the capital. Who knew how big of a storm this explosion would cause? Suddenly, a dragon's roar rang out, interrupting their thoughts. Their minds were completely filled with this sound. Being so close to the five-clawed golden dragon, the power of this dragon's roar was many times greater than outside. Everyone's expressions changed greatly, especially Marshall, whose cultivation was the weakest. He actually had the urge to kneel on the ground, and his face turned incomparably pale. "What's that sound?" Yen Patian and Lan Yu suppressed their palpitations and asked at the same time. Tang Jing shouted that something was wrong. He looked around and cried out, "Where's Li Xiaotian?" Chapter 876. Everyone seemed to have woken up from a dream and finally reacted. Wu said with a pale face, "I remember that she came down with us just now." Tang Jing also knew this. Previously, in a moment of desperation, he had activated the formation and moved everyone into the tunnel, including Li Xiaotian. It was just that just now, everyone's attention was on the tunnel, so they did not pay attention to Li Xiaotian. Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, this cunning woman had disappeared without a trace. Could it be that she escaped? Lan Yu asked anxiously. "No way." Tang Jing firmly shook his head. Li Xiaotian was not a cultivator, so he had no way of opening this formation. Of course, it was impossible for him to escape. He suddenly thought of the dragon's roar just now and shouted that it was not good. This woman must have escaped along the tunnel, but she did not expect to escape to the place where the five-clawed golden dragon was imprisoned. Perhaps the odds were against her. However, when Tang Jing recalled that dragon's roar, he felt a lot of unease in his heart, as if the sound had traveled along the stone slab to the outside world. In the past, because of the imprisonment of the array formation, No matter how big of a commotion the five-clawed golden dragon made, it would definitely not be transmitted to the outside world. Of course, it was impossible for the sounds outside to reach this place, but the sound of the explosion just now had clearly been transmitted in. 2. Therefore, Tang Jing felt a little uneasy. If the sounds from the outside could be transmitted in, then could it be that the dragon's roar just now could also be transmitted out? Then this matter would really be blown up. Dragons were existences in myths and legends. If the authorities or other powers knew of the existence of the five-clawed golden dragon, they would probably think of ways to come here. Perhaps they would use it for research, or perhaps they would release it. No matter what, Tang Jing did not want to see that scene. As for the ordinary people, they would panic and feel fear because of this dragon's roar. If this dragon's roar were to spread out, it would definitely not be a good thing for this world. Damned explosion, damned Song Yu, to actually cause such a serious chain reaction. Tang Jing gnashed his teeth in hatred. What's going on? What was that roar just now? Yen Padian asked curiously. At this point, Tang Jing was not going to hide it from them. Moreover, Li Xiaotian had fled to the five-clawed golden dragon, so he had to make a trip there. Let me tell you something. Don't be scared. Tang Jing softened his tone and tried to speak as calmly as possible. Yen Padian laughed and said, I have lived for more than half of my life, what have I not seen before? I don't think there is anything that can scare me. Yen Padian was full of confidence, and the other two were about the same. They looked at Tang Jing with burning eyes, waiting for him to reveal the answer. Tang Jing smiled mysteriously and said, that might not be the case. In any case, you should be mentally prepared. Tang Jing didn't say it out loud. This was too miraculous, and it was better to see it with his own eyes. Tang Jing led them through the long passageway. The three of them looked at each other, not knowing what Tang Jing was up to. Unknowingly, a wave of pressure gradually assaulted their hearts. This feeling was very similar to the feeling that the roar from before gave them. The expressions of the three of them became solemn as they craned their necks to look ahead. Suddenly, a ray of golden light entered their eyes. The three of them turned pale with fright. They didn't know what this golden light was, but there was a kind of aura that made their hearts palpitate and even made them feel fear. With their current cultivation, an aura that was enough to make them feel fear was extremely rare. What was inside? Could it be related to that roar just now? The answer was soon revealed. When they reached the end of the tunnel, the golden light had already covered their bodies. They almost held their breaths, as if a huge boulder was pressing down on their hearts. As they stepped in, they were completely bathed in the golden light. When they looked up, 3 long cries of surprise rang out at the same time. They were dumbstruck, and their eyeballs seemed to be about to pop out as they stared straight at the huge monster. The five-clawed golden dragon moved. Its coiling body moved, and its huge dragon head bent down. A dragon's breath was spat out from its mouth. It was like a gust of wind blowing on their bodies, causing their hearts to almost jump out of their throats. Dragon! A living true dragon. This was the only thought that echoed in their hearts for a long time. The rest of the thoughts were thrown out of their minds. Their minds were blank. For a moment, they were stunned like puppets. The five-clawed golden dragon was the first to break the silence. A dragon can speak? The three of them felt as if a clap of thunder rang out in their heads, causing them to feel dizzy. Tang Jing walked over, and Xiaobai jumped down from his shoulder with a whoosh, and jumped onto the five-clawed golden dragon's body without any trace of politeness. The three of them saw this and their hearts tightened. This was a dragon, why was Xiaobai not afraid? And so rude. Little Zheng, be careful. Lan Yu did not know where her courage came from, but she actually stood in front of Tang Jing without a care for her own safety. Although her heart was filled with fear, out of her mother's nature and instincts, she still did not turn back and did not take half a step back. Don't worry, it won't hurt me. Tang Jing patted Lan Yu's shoulder, walked past her, and looked up at the five-clawed golden dragon. They are all my friends, don't scare them. Tang Jing's tone was very calm, without the slightest bit of fear, causing the others' hearts to pound. You dare to speak to a dragon like this, are you really not afraid? Friends? Why did you suddenly bring so many people today? Moreover, they are so weak. The five-clawed golden dragon curled its lips and said with contempt, so weak. The few of them wanted to cry but had no tears. If anyone else said such words, they would definitely be reprimanded for boasting shamelessly. However, when it came from the five-clawed golden dragon's mouth, they did not have any thoughts of resisting. Although they did not know the exact strength of the five-clawed golden dragon, in front of it, they really felt that they were insignificant and weak. Only now did they understand the meaning of Tang Zheng's words, telling them not to be scared. They thought that these words were making a big fuss out of nothing. How could they be scared? Now that they saw the five-clawed golden dragon, they had to admit that they were really scared. That roar just now was definitely the dragon's roar. Dragon's roar. They were actually lucky enough to hear this kind of sound that only existed in legends. Although Tang Zheng's words were conclusive, telling them not to be afraid, their hearts were still in a mess, and they could not hide their panicked expressions. The five-clawed golden dragon ignored their thoughts and continued to say, "What's the use of so many weak people coming? In the future, you'd better make some strong friends." The three of them laughed bitterly. They were deeply despised, but they were powerless to refute. "You don't have to worry about me making friends," Tang Zheng said indifferently. Hearing Tang Zheng's words, their breathing became rapid again. "Please, when you talk to a dragon, you should soften your tone. Otherwise, it will be terrible if it gets angry." But looking at Tang Zheng's fearless appearance, they felt that their worries were unnecessary. They were afraid that Tang Zheng had already met with the five-clawed golden dragon countless times. As for the relationship between them, they could not figure it out even if they racked their brains. "Was there a woman who broke in just now?" Tang Zheng asked. "Oh yes, is she also your friend?" the five-clawed golden dragon asked. "No." "That's good, I was just about to eat her." The five-clawed golden dragon moved its body, revealing Li Xiaotian's figure. She was twisted between the dragon's body, already sluggish, as if she was scared silly, with her mouth wide open and eyes wide. No matter how powerful and smart she was, when she saw a creature like a dragon, she still reacted like an ordinary person. When she heard that the five-clawed golden dragon was going to eat her, she was so scared that her whole body trembled. Finally, as if waking up from a dream, she reacted and shouted, "Don't eat me, don't eat me, Tang Zheng, save me." Tears burst out of her eyes, a pear blossom bathed in rain, delicate and pitiful. How could Tang Zheng be deceived by her pitiful appearance? She was a two-faced woman with a poisonous heart. To be kind to her was to be cruel to oneself. Tang Zheng coldly snorted and said, "Li Shan, you have repeatedly gone against me. If it weren't for the fact that we had gone through life and death together, I would have killed you long ago. But this time, you didn't repent and came to kill me, and even attack the people around me. Do you think I will let you go?" Li Xiaoan shook her head like a rattledrum and explained, "No, no, no, this time it wasn't me who wanted to deal with you. This was all Song Yu's idea. It was his rotten idea in front of the Lord. He said that if he wanted to deal with you, he would first deal with the people around you. They are your fatal weakness. I was only sent by the Lord to assist him." Tang Zheng mockingly sneered and said, "Do you think I will still believe you? I don't expect you to believe me, but everything I said is the truth." Li Shan seemed to have grabbed onto a life-saving straw, refusing to let go, and explained pitifully, "You are the holy maiden of the Li Palace, but who is Song Yu? The Azure Dragon Hall Lord valued him, but not you, and even let you only assist him. How is that possible? I think this time it is you who is in charge, and he is the support." Tang Zheng was not an idiot and hit the nail on the head. "No, you are wrong. Song Yu is not the same as before. You know, before the Sword God died, he passed Sword Pavilion to him, so he is now the master of Sword Pavilion. His position is equal to our Li Palace's palace master. Although I am the holy maiden of the Li Palace, how could I dare to compete with him?" Li Xiaotian said half-truthfully. It was true that Song Yu was the master of Sword Pavilion in name, but he was restricted everywhere. Moreover, his cultivation was not good, so how could he be compared to Granny Li? Tang Zheng looked at her curiously. This was something he did not know. He could not help but ask, You said that Song Yu became the master of Sword Pavilion? He still remembered the Sword Pavilion he had met in the northeast. Besides the sword god, those sword slaves were also very good. Moreover, they were all obedient, like death warriors. If he had these sword slaves following him, his strength would definitely not be weak. Chapter 877. Tang Zheng had to admit that Li Xiaotian had a glib tongue and was very provocative and bewitching. But thinking of her various actions, Tang Zheng suppressed that trace of kindness and said with a murderous look, "You have a glib tongue, but I won't let you go even if you break the heavens." Li Xiaotian was very clear that she was on the chopping block and her life was in Tang Zheng's hands, so she hurriedly said, "Tang Zheng, listen to me. If you kill me, it won't do you any good. Instead, it will let Song Yu's scheme succeed. I have my own ways to deal with Song Yu. You don't need to worry. But if the Venerable Lord is deceived by Song Yu and thinks that you are the one who harmed me, then Song Yu's scheme will succeed and she will truly control Sword Pavilion. There will be endless troubles in the future." Tang Zheng snorted and said disdainfully, "The sword god is many times more powerful than Song Yu. When he was in charge of Sword Pavilion, I wasn't afraid, so why would I be afraid of Song Yu?" Seeing that her every suggestion was refuted, Li Xiaoan was anxious and angry. How can a person of great ambition be so impulsive? You should weigh the pros and cons, Tang Zheng sneered. As you said, I weighed the pros and cons and felt that killing you is more useful than keeping you alive. Li Xiaoan hurriedly shook her head. No, 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 it's useless to kill me. A dead person is useless. Only by enduring and living can you make the best use of everything. Is an element, Tang Zheng sneered. Li Xiaoan, if you knew this would happen, then why did you do it in the first place? I advise you not to waste your saliva and cherish the last moments of your life. Tang Zheng was determined this time. Li Xiaoyan was as vicious and merciless as a snake. The most important thing was that she already knew about the existence of the five-clawed golden dragon. If what she said was true, she would go back and expose Song Yu's true face. Then, the Great Lord would naturally know about the existence of the five-clawed golden dragon, which was not a good thing. Li Xiaotian stubbornly widened his eyes. Moving his lips, he still said unwillingly, "Don't you really want to know about the Azure Dragon Palace? I can tell you all about it. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. This is the best strategy." "How do I know if you're telling the truth?" Tang Zheng teased. "I swear that everything I said is true. There is not a single word of falsehood," Li Xiaotian promised. Tang Zheng firmly shook his head. "There's no need for you to ask. I have my own ways to find out." Of course, he wouldn't let Li Xiaotian die so easily. He had to squeeze out all of her value. Among them, the most important thing was obviously the secret of the Azure Dragon Palace. She definitely knew a lot of secrets in this area, so he definitely couldn't let her commit suicide like Jian Shisan. Li Xiaotian was truly in despair. Tang Zheng was stubborn. Even if she had a glib tongue, she wouldn't be able to shake Tang Zheng's heart. "Five-clawed golden dragon, let her go." The five-clawed golden dragon said unhappily, "She's my snack. I'm just borrowing her for a while. I'll return her to you in a while." Only then did the five-clawed golden dragon turn from worry to joy. "Then don't break my snack." When the others heard this, their expressions changed. Looking at the five-clawed golden dragon's mouth, their hearts turned cold. A single person wasn't enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. Marshall said, "She brought this upon herself. Just now, she even wanted to harm you, mistress." Yen Padian and Lan Yu had yet to recover from their shock. They were thinking even more. Since even the legendary true dragon had appeared, the impact on their worldview could be imagined. Especially looking at the conversation between Tang Zheng and the five-clawed golden dragon, it was as if they were on equal footing. This kind of relationship was too subtle and puzzling. What exactly was it about Tang Zheng that the five-clawed golden dragon thought so highly of him? In addition, the most important thing was, why was there a dragon under the imperial city? However, they were unable to ask this question for the time being. They only subconsciously stared at the five-clawed golden dragon. wanting to see every detail of it with fear and curiosity. The five-clawed golden dragon let go of Li Xiaotian, and Li Xiaotian leaped, wanting to fly over everyone's heads. Tang Jing did not move, but heard the five-clawed golden dragon snort angrily, "How can my snack run away?" With a sweep of the dragon's tail, Li Xiaotian used all of his abilities to dodge, but he was still swept away. Like a fallen leaf in autumn, he lightly fell to the ground. Tang Jing grabbed with his big hand, and Li Xiaotian was sucked in front of him by the heaven-swallowing technique. His big hand directly pressed down on her head. At the same time, he used the body-securing technique, making her unable to move or even commit suicide. With Jian Shisan as an example, and the people of the Azure Dragon Palace all facing death with equanimity, he did not want her to have the chance to commit suicide. Tang Jing did not hesitate to use the soul-searching technique. Li Xiaoan screamed miserably, and his eyes became sluggish. One scene after another, one message after another flew into Tang Jing's mind. He opened his eyes wide in surprise. Li Xiaotian really knew a lot of secrets, and many of the problems that had been troubling him in the past were immediately solved. In addition, he also realized that Li Xiaotian's previous words were half true and half false. This time, she was the one in charge of this matter, not Song Yu. Song Yu was only pushed to the front. As expected, none of her words were true. If he really listened to her, it would lead to a disaster. After a while, Tang Jing loosened his grip, and Li Xiaotian's screams came to an abrupt end. His eyes closed, and he fell limply to the ground. "What happened to her?" the others asked. "She just fainted." Tang Jing clapped his hands. The information he had gathered was too complicated, and he still needed to calm down and organize it. Of course, now was not the time. Tang Jing looked at Li Xiaotian expressionlessly and said to the five-clawed golden dragon, "I'll leave her to you." "You used the soul-searching technique on her?" the five-clawed golden dragon asked. Tang Jing nodded. "Why didn't you say so earlier? Now that she's turned into a fool, what's the point of eating it?" "I don't want it." The five-clawed golden dragon twisted his neck. He actually didn't like the snack. Tang Jing was stunned for a moment and said, "You don't want it? Then just kill her." Tang Jing said casually. "Don't kill her here and pollute my place. Too many rules." Tang Jing rolled his eyes in dissatisfaction. "Then I'll take her out." Tang Jing patted her cheeks a few times, but she didn't wake up. Tang Jing frowned, but now that she had turned into a fool and was no longer a threat, he didn't take it to heart. He simply put her into Sumeru world and killed her when he got out. Seeing Li Xiaotian disappear in front of everyone's eyes, no one was surprised. After all, the five-clawed golden dragon was in front of them. What exactly happened outside? There was such a big movement just now, and even the array formation here was shaken? The five-clawed golden dragon asked. Tang Jing's heart moved. There was an explosion. Was the array formation affected? The five-clawed golden dragon didn't answer in a hurry, but closed his eyes. After a while, his eyes widened in surprise. The array formation was not only shaken, but there was also a crack. The palace above is a part of the array formation. Now that the palace is destroyed, the array formation is not 100% complete. Tang Jing's eyelids twitched. He didn't expect that an explosion would cause such a big change. He quickly asked, "Then can you go out?" The five-clawed golden dragon's expression darkened and said, "How could it be that easy? There is only a crack in the array formation. This is a very small flaw. If I want to escape, I must completely break this array formation." Tang Jing secretly heaved a sigh of relief. As long as the five-clawed golden dragon did not escape for the time being, then everything would be fine. However, when he thought of the dragon's roar, he hurriedly asked, "Your dragon's roar just now seems to have spread outside?" The five-clawed golden dragon nodded. "That's true. After all, there are flaws in the array formation, so it can't be perfect. As long as the sound is loud enough, it can naturally be transmitted out. What if it attracts other people? If others know of your existence, won't they do everything they can to break through the soil layer above and reach here?" Tang Jing asked worriedly. The five-clawed golden dragon spat out a mouthful of dragon breath and scoffed. If it was really that easy, then wouldn't I have escaped long ago? How could a layer of soil stop me? Oh, then what exactly is going on? Although this is under the Imperial City, it is impossible to reach here just by breaking through the soil layer above. This is because this is an imaginary space. Although it is dependent on the Imperial City, it is impossible to reach here without relying on the array formation. The five-clawed golden dragon spoke tirelessly, causing the stone hanging in Tang Zheng's hand to gradually fall to the ground. He thought of Shumi Tianxia. Perhaps this was a small space similar to Shumi Tianxia. In this way, even if they heard the dragon's roar, it would be impossible for others to reach here and release the five-clawed golden dragon. However, there is another advantage to this matter, and that is that there are flaws in the array formation. Perhaps in the future, you won't have to wait until you reach the soul formation stage to be able to break the array formation and help me escape. The five-clawed golden dragon rolled his eyes and said happily, "Then how high of a cultivation level do I have to reach? I don't know. I'll only know after I try. Anyway, your current cultivation level is not enough. Let's wait until you reach the Yuanying stage." Tang Jing nodded his head hesitantly. Seeing that the others were staring at him with curiosity, he pondered for a moment and did not hide anything. In front of the five-clawed golden dragon, he roughly explained everything that had happened. Only now did they understand that the five-clawed golden dragon was trapped here and had to rely on Tang Zheng to escape. No wonder the difference in strength between the two sides was so great, yet they could sit on equal footing. Of course, Tang Zheng did not say that he was a Skywalker. This was one of his biggest secrets. The three of you, the existence of the five-clawed golden dragon is the greatest secret. You must not spread it out, understand? Tang Zheng's expression darkened as he warned. You can't even tell the people closest to you. Yen Patian nodded his head without hesitation. To be able to see the legendary dragon in his lifetime, that would be his greatest fortune. Moreover, he also understood the severity of the matter. This kind of news absolutely could not be leaked out. Of course, Lan Yu and Wu had no objections. Taking advantage of the chaos above, we should leave first. Otherwise, when the officials arrive, it won't be easy for us to leave even if we want to. Tang Jing said. The others nodded in agreement. They reluctantly looked at the five-clawed golden dragon, as if they wanted to firmly engrave its appearance in their minds. Tang Zheng activated the formation, and the three of them felt the scene in front of them change. In the blink of an eye, the five-clawed golden dragon disappeared, and they stood on top of a pile of ruins. Shwa shwa shwa. Chapter 878. The dazzling light shone down like it was daytime, firmly focused on them. Shit! Tang Jing secretly cried out and hurriedly looked around. Sure enough, the surroundings were already filled with people. The police with loaded guns had already surrounded the ruins so that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Each one of them held a gun, the black muzzle of the gun pointed at them. Two people walked out from behind the crowd and exclaimed at the same time, "Tang Jing, you didn't die?" Ding Liang and number 2 looked at Tang Zheng as if they had seen a ghost. They clearly already knew of his death. Tang Zheng said with a smile, "I'm lucky I won't die." Ding Liang looked at him in disbelief, and number 2, who was beside him, also stared at them with a burning gaze, his sharp gaze sweeping over them. They were very clear that Tang Zheng was resourceful and had many tricks up his sleeve. Perhaps he had used some method to deceive Rockefeller's people. Just now we searched once and clearly there was no one. How did you suddenly appear? Number 2 asked in a deep voice. Tang Zheng had specifically left without stopping in order to avoid direct contact with them. He didn't think that they would come so quickly and coincidentally bump into them. Since things had already gotten to this point, he could only make up some nonsense and muddle through. Tang Zheng pretended to be calm and said indifferently, "Qi, how can you understand the various abilities of a cultivator? I naturally have a way to escape." Number 2 looked at him with half trust and half doubt, as if trying to discern the truth of his words. Tang Zheng was unmoved and looked at him indifferently. When their eyes met, it was as if there were invisible sparks in the air. Tang Zheng's character was outstanding and in the end didn't reveal any flaws. Number 2 had no choice but to look away and change the question. That strange roar just now, did you hear it? Of course I heard it. Do you know what it was? Could it be that there are some monsters in the capital? Tang Zheng deliberately asked back. There was no need to deny this question. If they didn't hear it, it would instead arouse suspicion. That dragon's roar had practically spread through the streets of the capital. I also wanted to ask you this question. Number 2 coldly said. Tang Zheng pretended to be stunned and asked in puzzlement, "Why are you asking me? I've never heard of such a sound." Oh, right, didn't the dragon group capture a lot of demonic beasts for research? Could it be those demonic beasts? How is that possible? Those demonic beasts have all been properly dealt with. Moreover, that voice clearly came from here. Number 2 pointed at his feet and said. Tang Zheng shrugged, spread his hands, and said helplessly, "Then I don't know." "Then ask me something you know. Where are Li Xiaotian and Song Yu? What's with this explosion?" Number 2 asked, unwilling to give up. Tang Zheng said without hesitation, "Do you still need to ask?" Of course, the explosion was caused by Song Yu. That guy is crazy and tried to kill us with an explosion in the capital. He must have escaped long ago. You can't just turn a blind eye to it, right? After pausing for a moment, he ambiguously continued, "As for Li Xiaotian, when the explosion happened, how could I care about anyone else? Perhaps she was killed by the explosion." Killed by the explosion? Number 2 and Ding Liang looked at each other. Both of them weren't too sure. The power of the explosion just now was indeed too great. A magnificent palace had been blown into ruins. How could a body of flesh and blood withstand such terrifying power? Of course we won't let Song Yu go. Since he dares to act so recklessly, we will definitely arrest him and bring him to justice. Tang Zheng faintly smiled. Then I'll have to trouble you. If this kind of antisocial person is left in this world, he will only be a problem for society. Also, with Rockefeller acting like this, are you really going to ignore it? The higher-ups will have their own countermeasures. You don't need to worry about this. You just need to take care of yourself and don't cause any more trouble. Number 2 said. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with thought-provoking sharpness, but he didn't promise the other. Instead, he said, "I can't guarantee that. Rockefeller dares to kill me and use the people around me to threaten me. How can I just let this go? I will use all my power to keep them on this land." Number 2's gaze turned cold, like a terrifying bolt of lightning. He stared unkindly at Tang Zheng and said, "Didn't you hear Ding Liang's order before? Don't mess with Rockefeller." Tang Zheng dryly laughed a few times and said, "This matter has nothing to do with me. Of course you guys don't care. But he came to kill me. If I leave this disaster behind, then wouldn't I and the people around me be in danger at any time? It's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Some things can't be solved. Are you really going to turn the capital upside down?" Number 2 took a step forward and approached Tang Zheng. Before Tang Zheng could make a move, Yen Padian had already taken the lead and stood in front of Tang Zheng to protect him. He said, "You guys can put yourself in Tang Zheng's shoes and think about it. Is all of this his fault? If we don't work together to resist the enemy, wouldn't we be a joke to outsiders?" However, Number 2 was not afraid of Yen Padian and said sternly, "Elder Yen, have you thought it through? Could it be that your Yen family really wants to get involved in this mess?" Yen Padian laughed out loud and said disapprovingly, "Yen family swears to stand together with Tang Zheng. Any person or power that dares to go against Tang Zheng, the Yen family will definitely not sit idly by." When Yen Padian saw the 5-clawed golden dragon, his confidence in Tang Zheng soared to an unprecedented level. Of course, he would stand on his side without reservation. Although Number 2 represented the authorities, and even the intentions of the higher-ups, he still supported Tang Zheng without hesitation. Number 2 was overwhelmed with shock. He was very clear about the cautious style of these large families. Although the Yen family was the leader of the large families in the past and had great strength, they had never gone against the authorities. However, this time he clearly supported Tang Zheng, which was equivalent to standing on the opposite side of the authorities. Furthermore, Yenpadian was very clear about who exactly number 2 represented, but he still did not turn back. This couldn't help but shock number 2. Could it be that Yenpadian thought so highly of Tang Jing that he didn't even give face to the authorities? Yenpadian did not care about number 2's thoughts, he only looked at him firmly, indicating his firm stance. Number 2 coldly snorted, and did not comment. His gaze turned to Tang Jing and said, "Tang Jing, you've caused such a big commotion, come with me, someone wants to see you." Tang Jing guessed that the chief definitely wanted to see him. Since the matter had become so big, it wouldn't be bad to test the other party's bottom line. Although even if the other party explicitly opposed it, he would still attack Rockefeller without hesitation. "I'll go with you," Lan Yu said without hesitation, obviously afraid that his son would suffer. There were many experts in the inner palace, and Tang Jing was alone. It was truly risky. Only Tang Jing can go. Number 2 did not show any mercy, and looked deeply at Lan Yu. Of course he knew Lan Yu's identity. She was the wife of the previous martial sect master and Tang Jing's biological mother. Even if she threw away these identities, she was still a great master martial artist and was not someone to be underestimated. Tang Jing was full of confidence as he shook his head and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine." But Lan Yu still wanted to dissuade him, but Tang Jing smiled and shook his head. His voice became gentler as he said, "Go home and wait for me." Seeing her son speak so gently to her, Lan Yu was stunned, and her eyes sparkled as she looked at him. Tang Jing's attitude towards Lan Yu became much better. Although he could not personally call her mother, he was no longer as cold as before. "Okay." Lan Yu's heart felt warm, and the corners of her mouth lifted in gratification and excitement. But when she turned her head and stared at number 2, her eyes became especially sharp and full of aggression. She said with killing intent, "If anyone dares to hurt little Zheng, I will risk my life to kill them. No matter who it is, even if they escape to the ends of the earth, I will not let them go." This blatant threat made number 2 unable to do anything. After all, Lan Yu had the confidence to say this. Ding Liang hurriedly tried to smooth things over and said, "Everyone, don't misunderstand. Tang Jing is just going back to cooperate with the investigation. Nothing will happen. You guys go back. Wait for me to come back, then we'll discuss how to deal with Rockefeller and Song Yu." Tang Jing said without any hesitation. The few of them nodded, and with a tap of their feet, they flew out from the encirclement. With a few ups and downs, they disappeared into the night. The surrounding policemen were dumbstruck. "Let's go," number 2 said coldly to Tang Jing. Tang Jing smiled, and took a car with number 2 and Ding Liang to the heavily guarded courtyard house. But along the way, Tang Jing saw that there were many more people on the streets. Although it was early in the morning, many citizens were walking on the streets. It was obvious that such a big commotion had disturbed their good dreams, and they all ran out to see what was going on. However, this was easier said than done. The streets and alleys were already filled with armed policemen, and there were also many soldiers who had joined in to maintain order and separate the crowd. The imperial city was already heavily protected, and no one was allowed to get close. As for what exactly happened in the center of the imperial city, because it happened in the dead of night, not even a single photo was sent out. However, paper couldn't wrap fire. The huge explosion and the dragon's roar would definitely cause a huge disturbance. Tang Jing didn't say a word as he got out of the car and walked into the courtyard house. He found that the security of the courtyard house had at least doubled. Obviously, these people with high positions and power also knew that the situation was serious. They were deeply afraid that he would be affected, so they sent more people to protect him. Tang Jing could clearly feel that there were already countless pairs of eyes spying on him in the dark. Perhaps if he did anything wrong, these people would rush out to deal with him. Tang Jing smiled and didn't mind. He followed the two of them and easily arrived in front of the study. The chief was wearing a thin coat, standing in the courtyard outside the study with a serious expression. When he saw him come in, he gave him a deep look, and without saying a word, turned around and entered the study. Tang Jing also walked in, and found that there were two other people in the study. These two people's auras were very strong, and were very similar to the two auras he had sensed in the dark before. These two people were probably Imperial Palace experts like number 2. They had always been in hiding, but this time they actually stood in front of Tang Jing openly. Chapter 879. Tang Jing glanced at number 1 and number 3, completely unconcerned. He had no ill intentions towards the bureau chief, so why should he be afraid of them? The bureau chief's face darkened as he looked at Tang Jing sternly and said, "Do you know what you've done?" Tang Jing calmly accepted it and lightly said, "Could it be that you think that I was the one who started all of this?" The bureau chief was slightly startled. He didn't expect Tang Jing to dare to refute him. This was a challenge to his authority. In that instant, his gaze became extremely sharp. The atmosphere in the study changed. Number 1, 2, and 3 all tensed up, as if they would take down Tang Jing as soon as the bureau chief gave the order. The bureau chief didn't give the order in the end. He only stared at Tang Jing sternly, as if trying to see through his thoughts. Tang Jing was like a big ball of cotton, causing all the power he released to disappear. He helplessly snorted angrily and said, "What's with that roar?" Obviously, compared to other things, that dragon's roar was what he was most concerned about. Tang Jing shook his head as usual and pretended not to know. He said, "I don't know. I guess it's the sound of some monster." Monster? What monster?" the bureau chief asked, unwilling to give up. Tang Jing shrugged and said, "There are millions of monsters in the world. How can I recognize all of them? Moreover, it's just a sound, so I can't tell." The bureau chief looked at him suspiciously and suddenly said, "Someone said it's a dragon's roar. What do you think?" Tang Jing raised his eyebrows and pretended to be surprised. He asked, "Dragon's roar? Are there really dragons in this world?" He didn't seem to have any flaws, as if it was really the first time he heard of such a judgment. But his heart was beating like a drum. To be able to judge that it was a dragon's roar with just a roar, it seemed that the officials had many talents and guessed correctly. Number 2 also asked in surprise, "It's really a dragon's roar?" Obviously, it was also his first time hearing of such a judgment. Number 1 and number 3 obviously knew about this beforehand. They glared at number 2 fiercely, indicating for him to keep quiet. After number 2's interruption, the bureau chief's aura weakened a little, but he still persisted in asking, "You don't think it's the dragon roar?" "How would I know?" Tang Jing shook his head without hesitation. Could it be that dragons really exist in this world? The bureau chief didn't find any flaws and couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. Tang Jing was like an airtight wall. No matter how strong the wind was, it couldn't penetrate through. Tang Jing did not give up and asked, "If there really are dragons in this world, it would be a huge discovery." "Dragons are real." The bureau chief continued, "This is clearly recorded in ancient documents, but it's very confidential and not known to outsiders." Tang Jing pretended to be enlightened. "I see. That dragon roar came from the palace. Don't tell me you didn't discover anything else?" Tang Jing shook his head. "At that time, all I cared about was avoiding the explosion. I didn't even have time to run for my life. How could I have the time to care about other things?" The bureau chief nodded to himself. That kind of powerful explosion was indeed too dangerous. What Tang Jing said was not unreasonable. "Then how did you manage to escape? Didn't I already say? Cultivators have their own life-saving methods." "I'm very curious, so I want to listen and broaden my horizons." Tang Jing's expression turned cold. "I'm afraid I can't comply. If my life-saving methods are made public, how can I survive in the future?" "Not saying? Could it be that you want to go against us and are afraid that we will use this method to deal with you?" Tang Jing was stunned. This question was not easy to answer. The other party was obviously testing him. Since he had chosen to be tough, he couldn't compromise midway. Otherwise, he would be forced into a dead end by the other party. Tang Jing smiled faintly. "Why would I go against you? However, in this world, one must always be vigilant against others. Moreover, there are too many people and it's hard to avoid leaks. So, forgive me for not being able to comply." The other 3 instantly stared at Tang Jing with unfriendly expressions, as if they couldn't wait to attack immediately. However, The bureau chief calmed down. He had already tested Tang Zhang's bottom line, so he didn't dare to take another step. Don't dare? When he thought of this word, he couldn't help but find it funny and sad. He was a superior above millions of people, but he had to care about the feelings of a young man. It was really ridiculous. Although he was helpless, he had to admit that this was the truth. Tang Zheng saw the intention to retreat from the bureau chief's eyes, and a trace of joy flashed through his heart. It seemed that his tenacious persistence was fruitful. I heard that you don't intend to bury the hatchet with the Rockefeller family? The bureau chief changed the question. Tang Zheng sneered. Bury the hatchet? Do you think it's possible? Why not? The Rockefeller family is a big family and knows how to weigh the pros and cons. As long as we come forward to mediate, they will definitely take a step back. There's no need to fight to the death. Young man, take a step back and you'll have a better view. Tang Zheng shook his head without hesitation. It's none of my business. The Rockefeller family is not targeting you, so of course you can say that. Not only does he want to kill me, but he also wants to harm the people around me. This is my reverse scale. If anyone dares to touch it, I will definitely deal with him to the end and not let him have an easy time. After a slight pause, he emphasized his tone and repeated, anyone. Of course, this anyone was not limited to the Rockefeller family, but also included other people. The people in front of him were no exception. This was a resolute expression of his attitude. This kind of behavior was undoubtedly very provocative, especially for such a person with such a high position and power. The bureau chief's face changed instantly. It became gloomier and more serious. His sharp gaze was like a knife, about to pierce through Tang Zheng. But Tang Zheng did not retreat at all. After experiencing the Rockefeller family incident, he became cautious and wanted to strangle all possible dangers in the cradle. It didn't matter if they dealt with him, but if they dared to target the people around him, then he would definitely be angrier and fight to the death with them. The bureau chief understood the deep meaning in Tang Zheng's words. That was why he was so angry. He was threatening him to his face. He really wanted to flare up and have someone arrest Tang Zheng, but after all, he was not a 3-year-old child. He was very good at weighing the pros and cons. At this moment, having an enemy like Tang Zheng was definitely not a good thing for him. So, he took a few deep breaths and finally suppressed the anger in his heart. He looked at Tang Zheng and said, Rockefeller is not so easy to deal with. If you cause such a big disturbance again, then I won't sit back and do nothing. That's not up to me. You know what kind of people the Rockefeller family is. Bats, werewolves, these guys will definitely cause panic when they appear in public. This is not something I can control. Actually, I have a very good suggestion. You find Rockefeller's people, and then I'll deal with them myself. It's better for everyone to end this matter early. Although Tang Zheng knew Rockefeller's hiding place from Li Xiaotian's mind, with such a big commotion in the imperial city this time, Rockefeller was not stupid. He must have moved long ago. If there was official assistance, it would definitely be twice the result with half the effort. These people who were hiding their heads and tails would definitely not be able to escape. However, the bureau chief shook his head firmly. No. Even though Tang Zheng felt a bit regretful, there was nothing he could do. He shrugged his shoulders and said, Then I will dig 3 feet into the ground to find them. However, if the commotion is too big, then don't blame me. Impudent! Number 1 suddenly shouted, his eyes glaring angrily. The corners of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up in a cold smile. He met Number 1's eyes and said, What do you want? Tang Zheng, are you still from Huaxia? How dare you be so rude to the bureau chief? Number 1 scolded. Tang Zheng laughed loudly. If I'm not from Huaxia, why would I be standing here? When my life and the lives of my family were threatened, where were you? Now you're here to question whether I'm from Huaxia. What right do you have? Or, let me ask you bluntly, who do you think you are? This attitude was undoubtedly arrogant to the extreme, as if he was scolding the locust tree. But what he said was not without reason. Tang Zheng was a young man, so he had the hot-bloodedness of a young man. If he acted like an old and wise person in everything, then there would be a problem. Tang Zheng had experienced so many big and small battles, so the hot-bloodedness in his bones was very strong. It was just that he had been deliberately suppressing it. Now that it was stimulated by number one's questioning, the atmosphere became very tense, as if both sides could start fighting at any time. Number one's face turned red from the questioning, and he muttered, "The country has its own considerations. How can you sacrifice the interests of the whole for your own personal interests?" "I don't care about the interests of the whole, I only care about myself. Only when I'm not threatened can I care about others. Moreover, without an individual, how can there be a whole?" Tang Zheng was very eloquent and was not something a martial artist like number one could compare to. For a moment, number one was refuted until he was speechless. The bureau chief's expression was uncertain, and he kept staring at Tang Zheng. Seeing Tang Zheng's hot-bloodedness, he was not surprised. The so-called hot-bloodedness, to him, was just the impulsiveness of a young and ignorant person. If a young man was too mature and wise, and too shrewd, this was what he was most afraid of. Looking at the impulsive Tang Zheng, he felt a sense of relief. Young people. There was a limit to their shrewdness, so they were easy to deal with. For a moment, he could not help but feel relieved. He threw this conflict to the back of his mind and waved his hand, indicating that the two of them should stop talking. After this incident, he believed Tang Zheng's words a little more. After all, the dragon was a legendary existence. How could Tang Zheng have the ability to meet a dragon? Moreover, if he really met a dragon, could he still survive? Dragons were noble and mysterious, but it was said that they were violent by nature. Tang Zheng did not have the ability to make a dragon treat him differently. After thinking through all this, the bureau chief's expression turned from dark to bright, and a smile appeared on his lips. He softened his tone and said, "After all, Rockefeller is closely related to the Atlantic Empire. The government will not step in. This will cause more conflict. As for you, we can't do anything about it." Chapter 880. Hearing this, Tang Zheng was actually very happy. If the officials did not interfere, this would be the most beneficial situation for him. "Thank you very much." However, in the end, this matter was started by the Azure Dragon Palace, so the officials should deal with the Azure Dragon Palace even more. Tang Zheng took the initiative to mention the Azure Dragon Palace to test the other party's reaction. The bureau chief avoided talking about it and waved his hand. "The Azure Dragon Palace is too mysterious, we can't find it either. Your family has experienced such a thing, you should go back and comfort your family first." Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. The bureau chief's reaction was out of his expectations. He took the initiative to mention the Azure Dragon Palace, but the other party avoided talking about it, as if there was some secret behind it. Could it be the other party had some sort of relationship with the Azure Dragon Palace? But why didn't the information in Li Xiaotian's mind mention this? The Azure Dragon Palace seemed to have always been an independent existence and had never been involved in the matters of the imperial court. Logically speaking, the Azure Dragon Palace shouldn't have anything to do with the other party. Tang Zheng secretly shook his head. There must be some unknown secret behind this, and he had no way of knowing it for the time being. He bid farewell and left, only to discover that the sky had turned white. After this night of torment, the capital would definitely be very lively today. After Tang Zheng left, number one could not hide his anger as he said, "Bureau Chief, Tang Zheng is too arrogant, challenging authority, this kind of person cannot stay for long." The bureau chief smiled confidently. Although he challenges authority, he is also a useful chess piece. As long as he is used properly, he will be able to unleash a great deal of power. Moreover, he has the Empyrean Fairy, Tian Chanzi, and the Yen family behind him. If we touch him, it will affect the whole body, and the gains will not make up for the losses. Bureau Chief is wise. It was my fault for not thinking it through. Bureau Chief, this time, Yen Potion's attitude is very unyielding. It seems that he has sworn to stand together with Tang Zheng. This is not a good sign. Number 2 recalled Yen Potion's attitude from before and said thoughtfully. A glint flashed across the bureau chief's eyes as he said, "The Yen family is arrogant. Now that the other two families have fallen, the Yen family is in the limelight. However, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Isn't there still the Ye family in the capital? We must support the Ye family. We must not let the Yen family dominate the family. Understood. Even in his dreams, Yi Xuanji would never have thought that such a good thing would fall on his head. Originally, he was just hiding like a turtle, waiting for an opportunity to make his move. With the support of the government, it was foreseeable that the Ye family would develop rapidly in the near future. Chief, do you think Tang Jing really doesn't know about dragons? Although his cultivation level is high, he's still a young man after all. He can't keep his cool and is easily impulsive. We've tested him many times, but he didn't show any flaws. It seems like he really doesn't know, the bureau chief said after a moment of silence. If Tang Zheng were to hear this, he would definitely be very happy. He had worked so hard to put on an act and finally managed to deceive everyone. But dragons are legendary existences. Where are we going to find them? That dragon's roar came from the ruins. Even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, you must find the dragon for me. Yes. When Tang Zheng returned home, the sky was already bright. However, he suddenly discovered that there were traces of battle in front of the villa. He turned pale with fright. Could it be that this place was also attacked? He hurriedly rushed into the house, only to find that everyone was sitting in the living room, safe and sound. When they saw that he had returned, everyone stood up one after another. Are you okay? Faced with all the greetings, Tang Zheng revealed a trace of a warm smile and said, I'm okay. That's good. I thought they were really going to do something to you. Humph, if they really dared to do that, Lan Yu, will fight them to the end even if it means risking my life. Lan Yu was like a tigress, protecting the tiger cub Tang Zheng. What happened outside? Tang Zheng pointed outside the house and asked. Someone came to attack us last night, but we've already beaten them back. Tang Zheng was overwhelmed with shock. Fortunately, he had left the Empyrean fairy behind. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy for others. Rockefeller's people? No, Island Nation's people. Island Nation's people? Tang Zheng was shocked. Weren't the people of the Island Nation close to the 100 Faces Star Lord? Could it be that the 100 Faces Star Lord had also come to the capital? However, if there was a 100 Faces Star Lord in the attack last night, then the battlefield would definitely not be like this. What about the people of the Island Nation? There were a lot of casualties and then they fled. We were worried that there would be an ambush, so we did not chase after them. However, it was a woman who led the team. Fang Shishir said. It's Junko. Wu said. She had seen Junko in the Island Nation before, so she was naturally familiar with her. Tang Zheng was shocked. Junko of the Imperial Preceptor's mansion. The Imperial Preceptor was dead, but she was still alive. It seemed that she had inherited the Imperial Preceptor's mansion. This time, his enemies were here, the Imperial Preceptor's mansion and the Rockefeller family. Without a doubt, these two groups of unrelated people gathered together because of the Azure Dragon Palace's conspiracy. Moreover, the information obtained from Li Xiaotian also confirmed this point. Where's Junko? Did you catch her? No, this woman is too cunning. She escaped. Tang Zheng looked at the Empyrean fairy and asked, Did the 100 Faces Star Lord come? The Empyrean fairy shook her head. He didn't come, but the strength of these people last night is not to be underestimated, especially that Junko. She is actually in the Master Realm and knows some strange spells. Master Realm? Tang Zheng was shocked. He still remembered that Junko was only in the innate realm, but she reached the Master Realm in such a short time. He was afraid that only the 100 Faces Star Lord could do this. I was right, this group of people from the Island Nation really can't be separated from the 100 Faces Star Lord. As for the spells she knew, ninjutsu was originally a branch of spells. It was very shallow, but with the 100 Faces Star Lord, all of this would naturally change, so it was not surprising that Junko knew some strange spells. In fact, there was a big difference between the ninjas of the Island Nation and the traditional martial artists. Ninjutsu was a deformed existence that combined martial arts and spells. If one practiced ninjutsu, they would not be able to reach the peak of martial arts or spells, and would be greatly restricted. This was why the island nation gathered the strength of the whole country, but after all, there were not many ninjutsu masters. There was no other way, the route was restricted. However, this also led to an advantage, that was, they could not only practice martial arts but also some shallow spells. It could be imagined that the person who created the ninjutsu back then was also a genius. However, with the 100 Faces Star-Lord, this situation would definitely be broken. He would teach these people authentic spells, so they would gradually abandon their identity as martial artists and turn into cultivators. However, there was still a problem with the foundation of these people, so even if they cultivated authentic spells, it would be impossible for them to achieve much unless their talent was extremely outstanding. As long as everyone is fine, it's fine. It seems that we have another mission this time. Not only do we have to find Rockefeller, we also have to find this group of island nation monkeys. Tangjing said. Yen Pin patted his chest and said confidently, Tangjing, don't worry, our people have already spread out, and even if we want to find a needle in a haystack, I will still fish them out, not to mention that they are not even needles. The most important thing is to prevent them from escaping. Since they have barged in, then we must close the door and beat the dog, catching a turtle in a jar. We definitely cannot let them escape, Tangjing said as he clenched his fists. Don't worry, even if I have to risk my life, I won't let them succeed. Although Yen Padian had experienced an entire night of turmoil, his face was flushed red, as if he had regained his youth. He was extremely excited. Obviously, this was the aftereffect of seeing the 5-clawed golden dragon. Tangjing saw Yen Qingyi in the crowd and was surprised that she was here. He nodded slightly at her. Yen Qingyi nodded in return and asked the question in everyone's heart, Tangjing, how did you come back from the dead? Seeing that everyone was looking at him curiously, Tangjing laughed and said, I didn't come back from the dead, I just entered a state of near death. Fortunately, Xiaobai helped me and gave me a pill, so I was pulled back from the gates of hell and caught them off guard. Only then did everyone pat their chests. So that was how it was. If a person really came back from the dead, that would be too inconceivable. Yen Qingyi's face reddened. She had predicted that Tangjing was dead and then came back to life. She was completely wrong. What he saw in his prophecy was only a picture, so he did not know all the information. Naturally, there would be discrepancies in his deductions. But even so, everyone was still afraid. After walking through the gates of hell, if they were the slightest bit careless and made a mistake, then it was really possible for them to step into the gates of hell and never return. When Mu Hongyan thought about it, she felt a lingering fear in her heart, but she was also incomparably moved. Although Tangjing did not really commit suicide, such an action still made her extremely grateful. Tangjing, thank you. In her excitement, she actually threw herself into Tangjing's embrace without hesitation and hugged him tightly. Everyone fell into silence as they watched all of this with their mouths agape. Mu Hongyan was not a young girl like Fang Shishir, so such an action was somewhat unexpected and even out of line. But at this time, no one raised any objections. Tangjing was suddenly startled and somewhat embarrassed. His mind could not help but recall the bits and pieces of the past with Mu Hongyan. Her mature body was completely different from Fang Shishir and the others. She was like a ripe peach that could drip water with a light pinch. Just a little contact and feeling the amazing elasticity under her clothes could make one's imagination run wild. Mu Hongyan felt the warmth of his embrace and her heart beat rapidly like a little girl in love for the first time. There was a feeling of butterflies in her stomach. Her face suddenly turned red, and she shyly thought, why am I like this? I'm not a little girl anymore. Only then did she realize how abrupt her action was. Everyone must be looking at her. However, how good would it be if she could always lean in this warm and broad embrace? To have such a person accompany and protect her, for any woman, it would be the greatest happiness in her life. Why would I think about this? I am a few years older than him, and I am also the mother of his child. How can I let my imagination run wild, shameless? She fiercely criticized herself in her heart and quickly let go of Tangjing. She pretended to be calm and said, Tangjing, thank you for risking your life to save me. Chapter 881. Yen Padian and Yen Chingy bid farewell and left to search for the whereabouts of Rockefeller and the people of the island nation. Tang Jing returned to his room alone to rest. The others had been in a state of fear for the entire night. In addition, they had gone through a great battle. They were all exhausted and returned to their rooms to rest. Yiding Dang did not go home, but chose a room to stay in. Therefore, even though the sky was already bright, the villa was still quiet. Mu Hongyan sat in front of the dressing table and looked at herself in the mirror. When she recalled the scene just now, her cheeks couldn't help but turn pink, like a shy young girl. No one has ever been willing to sacrifice their life for me. Even Nana's father was unable to do this back then. Could it be that Tang Jing has some thoughts about me? When she thought of this, she was actually not angry. She was only a little flustered and at a loss. I'm no longer a little girl. I'm already old. How can I compare to a young girl? She looked at herself in the mirror. In fact, she was still as beautiful as ever. Her skin was as white as snow, and her mature charm was unstoppable. What am I thinking about? I really don't know shame. She rubbed her cheeks and suppressed the charming thoughts in her heart. She took a deep breath and barely managed to regain her composure. Tang Jing didn't even eat breakfast before going to rest. It's not good for his health. Moreover, after a great battle, he consumed a lot of energy. I'll go make some food for him. She went to the kitchen, cooked a bowl of fragrant noodles, and brought it to Tang Jing's door. All the girls lived upstairs, and only Tang Jing lived alone on the first floor. Therefore, no one else noticed what she had done. Standing in front of Tang Jing's door, she couldn't help but feel a little flustered. She patted her chest a few times to indicate that she had calmed down, and then gently knocked on the door. Who is it? Tang Jing's voice immediately sounded. It was obvious that he had not fallen asleep yet. It's me. Can I come in? Come in. She opened the door and walked in. She saw Tang Jing bare-chested and wearing shorts. Tang Jing's figure was very good, and his 8-pack abs were very eye-catching. Although Mu Hongyan was experienced, seeing this body made her heart beat faster. She quickly concealed her inner thoughts and looked straight ahead. She didn't dare to look at Tang Jing any longer. I've cooked a bowl of noodles for you. Eat it while it's still hot and then rest. You must be exhausted after such a long day. Tang Jing was slightly stunned. He didn't expect her to be so thoughtful. He smiled. Sister Mu, you are too polite. My body is very good. I won't be hungry if I don't eat. Mu Hongyan said seriously, although you're young, you can't be so careless with your health. Humans are made of iron and steel. If you don't eat a meal, you'll be hungry. I'm not as capable as them, so I can only cook for you. Tang Jing's smile suddenly froze. That last sentence was too misleading. She was going to let him eat the noodles? Why am I so dirty? Tang Jing complained to himself. He quickly got rid of these messy thoughts. Seeing his reaction, the smart Mu Hongyan immediately realized the ambiguity in her words. Her heart was anxious and embarrassed. How could I say such shameless words? Looking at his appearance, he must have misunderstood. Then what will he think of me? In a moment of desperation, her hand slightly trembled and the bowl fell from her hand. Tang Jing's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He immediately reacted and his figure flashed in front of her. His big hand reached out and caught the bowl. Mu Hongyan was in a daze. She only felt a strong masculine aura hit her in the face. Tang Jing's bare upper body was just inches away, creating a strong visual impact for her. Her breathing suddenly became rapid. Her cheeks were as red as an apple and her eyes were blurred. Mu Hongyan was nearly 30 years old. It was the age of tigers and wolves. She had not come into contact with a man for so many years. Tang Jing was so outstanding. In this kind of environment, he instantly firmly attracted all of her attention. All kinds of thoughts that were originally suppressed came flooding in like a tide. She unexpectedly reached out her hand and pressed it on Tang Jing's chest. Tang Jing was suddenly startled. Like a sculpture, he did not move. He held the bowl in one hand and stopped in midair with the other hand, not knowing what to do. He looked at Mu Hongyan with a complicated gaze. Seeing her reaction, his heart swayed. A woman was most beautiful when she was in love. Without a doubt, Mu Hongyan was in love now. That flirtatious appearance was like a fire seed that fell into Tang Zheng's body. His current cultivation was profound. Without a doubt, his pure yang energy had been accumulating. Moreover, because of Lan Yu's arrival, he did not dare to casually sneak into anyone's room at home. Therefore, during this period of time, his pure yang energy was only accumulating. Without the harmony of yin and yang, it had long become restless. Without a doubt, Mu Hongyan's fire seed ignited the pure yang energy in his body, causing him to become restless. Mu Hongyan's hand came into close contact with Tang Zheng's skin. She could not help but feel an electric shock. This was a feeling she had not felt for many years. Her eyes were blurred, her eyes were wandering, and her breath was like orchids. She could not help but think of the scene of Tang Zheng saving her without hesitation. Her heart softened again. If a woman had such a man to protect her, what else could she ask for? Career, power, money? She did not want any of them. She only wanted such a man, such strong shoulders, broad chest, and warm embrace. She was in a daze and actually rushed forward to hug Tang Zheng. That warm embrace gave her a sense of security that was particularly intoxicating. Although she had a high position and was a strong woman, she had not felt safe for many years. Ever since Tang Zheng appeared and saved Nana, her life gradually became safe. No matter what she was worried about, as long as she saw Tang Zheng, she would feel exceptionally safe. No matter what difficulties she faced, Tang Zheng would solve them. When she was captured by Rockefeller, she could not get rid of Tang Zheng's figure in her mind. She had a faint expectation that Tang Zheng would definitely come to save her. Later, her dream came true. Tang Zheng really did come to save her, and in a tragic way, he sacrificed his own life. At that time, she was completely moved. At that moment, she was completely captivated by Tang Zheng. At this moment, hugging Tang Zheng and feeling the warmth from his chest and his strong heartbeat, she finally understood her thoughts. Her heart no longer belonged to herself, because it was filled with Tang Zheng. Being hugged by such a hot woman, Tang Zheng could not bear it. With a wave of his hand, the bowl flew steadily to the table next to him, and he carefully hugged her with both hands. Feeling the response of Tang Zheng's hands, Mu Hongyan's dry heart seemed to be injected with rain, and her body and soul were full. Her body gradually heated up, and she hugged Tang Zheng tighter with both hands. Reluctant to let go, she said as if in a dream, "Tang Zheng, in order to save me, you did not hesitate to sacrifice yourself." For a moment, thousands of words came to her mind, but she did not know where to start. There was a voice in Tang Zheng's heart that shouted loudly, "I want her." His hand could not help but support her waist. Her waist was very thin, soft, and amazingly elastic. Mu Hongyan's hand rubbed Tang Zheng's back, which aroused the fire in Tang Zheng's head. He lowered his head and kissed her red lips. Like dry wood meeting a raging fire, the two of them were burning. Mu Hongyan had her own unique advantages. Like a ripe peach, she could especially tease men's heartstrings. Tang Zheng was no exception. In the face of such temptation, he could not resist at all. Mu Hongyan's kiss was very intense. It was completely different from Fang Shishir and the others. It was as if she could mobilize every cell in Tang Zheng's body and stimulate every nerve in his body. After a long drought, her heart and body eagerly hoped to be nourished by Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's pure yang energy completely broke out. The strong masculine aura intoxicated her, and their hands were not willing to give up on the status quo. Tang Zheng's hand had already drilled into her clothes. In the summer, she wore cool clothes. Mu Hongyan felt her whole body stiffen. Two big hands had already invaded her body. Usually, when she walked on the street, she was very disgusted by the aggressive and hot eyes of other men. But for Tang Zheng, she only liked him. She also had a faint expectation that he would be more intense. Tang Zheng was preparing to attack the city and take over the land. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. "Tang Zheng, I have something to talk to you about." It was the Empyrean fairy's voice. As if a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads, the two of them calmed down in an instant. They looked at each other and were very flustered. Mu Hongyan released him as if she had been electrocuted. Tang Zheng's hand also reluctantly withdrew. Looking at the red face of Mu Hongyan, the fire in his heart kept burning. He gritted his teeth hatefully. Why was the Empyrean fairy so annoying? It was wrong to disturb someone else's good time. Mu Hongyan's heart still had a lingering fear. There were other people in the house, and one of them was Tang Zheng's official girlfriend. If she was caught doing this, how could she face them? How could she face others? She quickly tidied up her clothes and adjusted her breathing. However, the deep affection in her eyes could not be concealed. Bang! The Empyrean fairy seemed to be impatient and directly opened the door and walked in. Why are you here? The Empyrean fairy looked at Mu Hongyan suspiciously. Mu Hongyan felt guilty and did not dare to look at the Empyrean fairy. She was afraid that she would find out something was wrong. She lowered her head and said, I cooked a bowl of noodles for him. Tang Zheng, after you eat, just bring the bowl to the kitchen. After saying that, she hurriedly walked out without looking back. The fairy of the 9 heavens looked at her back with suspicion, as if she was deep in thought. Tang Zheng quickly diverted her attention and asked, Why are you looking for me? I forgot to ask you just now. What is the deal with Yan Qingyi's prophecy technique? Last night, she had a long talk with Yan Qingyi. Yan Qingyi had told her about the prophecy technique. However, the Empyrean fairy was not satisfied. She thought that Yan Qingyi was still hiding something, so she wanted to get more information from Tang Zheng. The flame on Tang Zheng's head was still burning. Mu Hongyan had slipped away. She only cared about killing and not burying. This made him suffer. Seeing the Empyrean fairy staring at him, he knew that he could not easily send her away. Otherwise, she would definitely make wild guesses and perhaps discover the truth. He picked up the noodles and ate while absent-mindedly dealing with the Empyrean fairy. Mu Hongyan ran back to the room. She leaned against the door and felt weak all over. She could barely stand. Chapter 882. Tang Zheng didn't know what happened after Mu Hongyan returned to her room. He was busy dealing with the Empyrean fairy. She was extremely interested in prophecy and kept on asking him questions. Tang Zheng actually didn't know much about prophecy. He gave a general explanation, but it was all from what Yan Qingyi had told the Empyrean fairy. She didn't get anything and was very unwilling to give up. She stared straight at Tang Zheng, as if trying to see through the truth in his words. Tang Zheng had no choice but to spread his hands. That's all I know. She said you were the savior in her prophecy. She should be wrong. Her latest prophecy has already refuted this point of view. I'm not some savior. In any case, you played a big role in it. And from her description, it seems that the prophecy happened at Mount Buzhou. Tang Zheng nodded. There was no need to hide this. He said openly, Didn't you also go to Mount Buzhou to take a look? Did you find anything new with her prophecy? I'll investigate it myself. The Empyrean fairy said. Apparently, she didn't find anything new for the time being. All right, I've finished my noodles, so I'm going to rest. Tang Zheng carried the bowl into the kitchen, leaving the mysterious maiden of the 9 heavens to return to her room in deep thought. Tang Zheng returned to his room and lay down. His heart was 9, but the flames in his heart were still restless. He looked down and found that a tent had already been set up. This won't do. I'll be finished if this kind of pure yang energy erupts. Moreover, it's at such a critical time. If the pure yang energy erupts during a battle, then I won't be able to keep my life. He got out of bed and tiptoed to the 2nd floor. Just as he was about to sneak into Mu Hongyan's room, Yi Dingdang suddenly opened the door and walked out. Oh no! Tang Zheng cried out inwardly, but there was no way he could retreat. He could only brace himself and ask, Why aren't you resting? I'm not used to a new bed. What are you doing? Of course, Tang Zheng did not dare to say that he was looking for Mu Hongyan. He had an idea and took advantage of the situation to pull Yi Dingdang into the room. He closed the door and said, I missed you, so I came to look for you. Sweet talk. That being said, Yi Dingdang was obviously very happy. You were still very introverted in high school. Why are you getting more and more thick-skinned now? Tang Zheng chuckled. Did he say so? Why didn't I notice? As he spoke, he reached out and hugged Yi Dingdang. "Hey, what are you doing?" Yi Dingdang felt as if she had been electrocuted. She quickly dodged, but she couldn't escape from Tang Zheng's evil claws. She was tightly held in his arms. "Why is your body so hot?" Yi Dingdang suddenly asked. "I missed you." Tang Zheng could no longer hold back the restless pure yang energy. His large hands began to misbehave. "Don't." Yi Dingdang's body stiffened. "There are so many people in the house. They will hear us." This was Yi Dingdang's first time living in Tang Zheng's house. She never thought that she would encounter such a situation. Of course, she couldn't help but panic. Tang Zheng gently comforted her. "Don't worry, the sound insulation is very good. They won't be able to hear us." "Do you usually do this kind of bad thing at home? Aren't you afraid that others will find out?" Yi Dingdang suddenly asked. Tang Zheng couldn't help but sigh. This woman's brain circuit was really different. She could even think of this kind of question at this time. "How could that be?" Tang Zheng said without blinking. He decided not to give her a chance to speak. He leaned over and kissed her. Yi Dingdang tenderly cried out and could no longer say a word. In fact, after experiencing yesterday's incident, she was also a little scared. She just didn't show it. Now that she was alone with Tang Zheng and fell into his passionate kiss, her emotions erupted like a flash flood. After a brief resistance, she devoted herself wholeheartedly and passionately responded to his demands. The two quickly fell on the bed and rolled into a ball, entangled together. This time, Yi Dingdang clearly felt a hot qi enter her body and wander through her meridians. Tang Zheng also felt a cool pure yin energy enter his body and gradually neutralize the restless pure yang energy. Finally, it turned into qi and gathered in his dantian. Yi Dingdang had been deliberately suppressing her voice, but in the end, Tang Zheng's strength was too great. She had no choice but to let go of her body and mind to cooperate with him. Fortunately, the room's sound insulation was good. Otherwise, everyone would have heard this beautiful and moving sound. In the afternoon, when Tang Zheng woke up, there was no beauty beside him. This was because he had been driven out by Yi Dingdang and had to return to his room. The two were affectionate for a long time. Tang Zheng's pure yang energy was finally appeased. The qi in his body increased a little. "AI, when will these sneaky days come to an end?" He sighed. However, even though he said so, he didn't dare to really publicize such a chaotic relationship. If he did, he was afraid that he wouldn't even have the opportunity to sneak around. He opened the door and walked out, only to find that everyone was gathered together. However, there were two more people in the living room. One was sitting, and the other was standing like a puppet. "Hey Tianchanzi, why are you here?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. His gaze involuntarily fell on the standing person. Huang Zieng. This was once a hedonistic young master. However, in the end he was taken in as a puppet by Tianchanzi. He also followed Tang Zheng for a period of time, but was later taken back by Tianchanzi. He had always been puzzled as to what Tianchanzi did with him. He didn't expect that he would be brought back today. Moreover, Tang Zheng clearly felt that the yin energy on his body was dense. It was almost the same as the people in the ghost realm. This was the dog days of June, but just by standing there, he was better than the air conditioning. Almost the entire hall's temperature dropped by several degrees, making people feel cold. Seeing Tang Zheng look at Huang Zieng, Tianchanzi laughed. He waved at Tang Zheng and pointed at Huang Zieng. He said proudly, "Tang Zheng, look at my results." Tang Zheng suspiciously stared at Huang Zieng and said, "His strength has increased a lot." "Huh, it's more than a lot. He's almost at the peak. Do you know? This is the advantage of being a puppet. His cultivation speed is amazingly fast. I think he's not much worse than you. Do you know what his current strength is equivalent to?" The other party's yin energy was too heavy. He didn't have the conventional cultivation level. He could only rely on his combat ability to judge. Therefore, Tang Zheng couldn't tell. He shook his head and said he didn't know. Tianchanzi seemed to have known his answer. He said proudly, "Golden Core 9th grade. It's higher than your Golden Core 7th grade. Hee hee, are you jealous?" "What, golden core 9th grade. Tang Zheng was shocked. This was really beyond his expectations. One must know that Tang Zheng's cultivation speed was already heaven-defying, but Huang Ziang was even more heaven-defying than him. I found him an excellent place, surrounded by 100 ghosts, and not a single blade of grass grew. If an ordinary person were to go there, they would probably be scared to death. He has been silently cultivating there, and in the end, all the ghosts were absorbed by him, which is why he has reached such a level of cultivation. Furthermore, he is invulnerable and has an indestructible body, which is similar to your primal chaos Vajra spell. Tian Chanzi was like a child showing off his toy, looking like he deserved a beating. The others were also shocked, especially Yi Dingdang. He had seen Huang Ziang before, but he never thought that his cultivation would be so powerful. After Tang Zheng recovered from his shock, he was not envious, and said, "After all, he doesn't have his own consciousness, and is a puppet, just like a dead object. No matter how high his cultivation is, no matter how fast his speed is, why would I be envious?" This was the truth. If he lost his consciousness and only pursued the increase of his strength, then he would be neglecting the essentials. Therefore, this was the power of a celestial walker. Under normal circumstances, his cultivation would increase at a godly speed. How could a puppet be compared to a celestial walker? Seeing that he did not hit Tang Zheng, Tian Chanzi was extremely disappointed and said unwillingly, "Your mentality is really getting better and better. No wonder you don't have any inner demons. I don't know where you got such dog's hit luck. How could you not have any inner demons for no reason?" Tang Zheng had never told anyone about the matter of the Langya Pavilion. This was one of his biggest secrets, so of course he could not easily show it to others, so they did not know that he had used the exorcist mirror to do this. Tang Zheng smiled faintly, "Maybe this is because I'm handsome." Chanzi was so angry that he glared at him fiercely and muttered, "Can handsomeness be eaten?" After a pause, he waved his hand at Fang Shishir, and Fang Shishir came in front of him. Tian Chanzi smiled with gratification. "Good disciple, you have become my disciple, but I haven't given you a gift. That little brat has made fun of me many times, saying that I am stingy. How could he know my thoughts? How could I be stingy with my own disciple? Here, I brought you a gift today." After saying this, he pointed at Huang Ziang. Everyone was stunned. He actually wanted to give a 9th grade golden core Huang Ziang to Fang Shishir. "Your cultivation is still too weak, so you will always be at a disadvantage when you meet enemies. Therefore, with him protecting you, normal people will definitely not be able to harm you in the future. Disciple, do you think this gift of mine is good?" Tian Chanzi looked at Fang Shishir with shining eyes, as if he was waiting for the word "good" from her mouth. Fang Shishir was stunned. She never thought that she would have such a powerful puppet to protect her, and for a moment, she was at a loss. However, when she looked at the gloomy Huang Zheng, her heart suddenly jumped, and she was somewhat unwilling to accept this gift. After all, girls liked beautiful things, and Huang Ziang really couldn't be considered beautiful. Tian Chanzi was stunned, and suspiciously asked, "You don't want it?" "Master, senior sister doesn't want it, but I want it," Princess Anne said without any disdain. Obviously, she was very clear about the value of such a puppet. Although it looked gloomy, it was powerful, and this temptation was not small. Tian Chanzi turned a deaf ear, as if he didn't even consider Princess Anne. They were the same master, but the difference in treatment was too big. The princess was very hurt. "Masters?" Fang Shishir hesitated. Tang Zheng was very clear about the use of Huang Ziang and quickly said, "He, Tian Chanzi, you are finally generous for once. Shishir, quickly thank your master." When Fang Shishir heard Tang Zheng say this, she swallowed back the words of refusal and reluctantly squeezed out a smile and reluctantly said, "Thank you, master." Tian Chanzi wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Was there a master as miserable as him? He had carefully prepared this gift for so long, but his disciple didn't accept it, and even needed Tang Zheng to say good words for him before reluctantly accepting it. Chapter 883. Fang Shishir reluctantly accepted this special gift. Tian Chanzi also told her how to control Huang Xing, and was envious. This master was really biased. However, she didn't dare to be angry. Instead, she smiled and asked, "Master, do I have a gift?" Tian Chanzi awkwardly coughed and said, "Master hasn't thought of what to give you yet. When the time comes, I will naturally give it to you." He accepted Princess Anne's crystal. Of course, he couldn't go back on his word. He couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed for being biased, and was very disappointed and unhappy. "Good disciple, Master will definitely find a very good gift for you." "That's right. Does your father have any more crystals?" Tian Chanzi tested the crystal and experienced the magic of the crystal, so he wanted a few more. Princess Anne hesitated and said, "Father said that he doesn't have any more." "AI, that's a pity." Tian Chanzi sighed. Although he said that, he didn't believe that she didn't have any more. This kind of crystal was a foreign object. It couldn't be that there were only 2 of them. The other side must have hidden it, but he was too embarrassed to ask for it. After all, he was still Anne's master. He had to maintain a little of his master's image. Tian Chanzi didn't want to continue the topic of gifts. He quickly changed the topic and said, "Tangjing, this time Rockefeller and the island nation came to find trouble with you. Do you need my help?" Tangjing thought about the power of the ancestor. He nodded and said, "It's best if you stay and help. I guess there should be news in a day or 2. This group of people are like turtles shrinking their heads. But the capital is already like an iron can. They can't escape." Tian Chanzi didn't put Rockefeller in his eyes. He disdainfully curled his lips, "A group of filthy things that can't enter the hall of elegance. Don't put them in your heart. However, I heard that you captured that girl, Li Xiaoyan. You should have used the soul-searching technique to find out about the Azure Dragon Palace Hall, right?" Tang Jing had already sorted out the information earlier. He nodded and said, "Of course, we've gained a lot this time. I was just about to tell everyone about it. The Azure Dragon Hall is extremely mysterious, and we already know its exact location. Therefore, when the matters in the capital are settled, we will immediately go to the Azure Dragon Hall. This organization has been hiding mysteriously for so many years, and it is finally time to uncover its mysterious veil and expose it to the light of day." Hearing this, Tian Chanzi said excitedly, "I've always wanted to meet the Azure Dragon Palace, but these guys are like rats, hiding in the dark corners and never showing themselves. I'm also helpless." After a slight pause, he asked again, "Other than the address of the Azure Dragon Hall, what else is there?" Li Xiaotian knows a lot of things about the Azure Dragon Hall, but she still doesn't know the true core. For example, the High Lord's true appearance, because he has always been wearing a mask. However, there is one thing that we didn't expect. The Azure Dragon Hall is divided into 3 groups. One group is the Martial Organization, Li Palace, and Sword Pavilion. The other group is the Flying Guillotine. This is an extremely powerful group of assassins, and we have already seen them in the 100,000 Mountains. At that time, we killed the Flying Guillotines group and almost wiped out the majority of them. I thought that the Flying Guillotine was almost completely destroyed by us, but now I understand that my thinking was too simple. How is it too simple? Not only Tian Chanzi, but even the Empyrean fairy pricked up her ears. The Flying Guillotine's numbers are far more than that. That is only a part of it. In other words, we haven't destroyed the Flying Guillotine's core. Tang Jing said in a heavy tone. Those are all martial scholars. Could it be that the Azure Dragon Hall has nurtured so many martial scholars? Tian Chanzi was extremely shocked. He now understood the original composition of this world. There shouldn't be so many martial scholars. That is the truth. Li Xiaotian's information confirmed this point. As for how many members there are in the Flying Guillotine, even Li Xiaotian doesn't know. Tian Chanzi's thick eyebrows twitched and said, "This Azure Dragon Hall is really powerful. Just what kind of person was New Era, who created the Azure Dragon Hall?" Tang Jing also couldn't imagine it. However, since the other party was able to expel all the cultivators in this world, it was enough to show how powerful he was. Then what about the third group? Empyrean Fairy asked. The third group is the Azure Dragon Hall's consecrators. Actually, we have already seen them. The fair-faced flying dragon is one of them. Right now, the Azure Dragon Hall has a total of 3 great consecrators. Other than the fair-faced flying dragon, there is also the Elder Angler. The last one is very mysterious. It is said that she is a woman. Even Li Xiaotian has never seen her before. These consecrators are very powerful. Among them, the fair-faced flying dragon's cultivation is the weakest. However, you have already seen it. He is already a martial king. Tang Zheng spoke tirelessly. His heart was also stirred up. The layers of mysteries of the Azure Dragon Hall were unveiled. What was revealed was a truth that shocked even Tang Zheng. Tian Chanzi's eyes flickered with an ominous glint and said, "Since the Azure Dragon Hall is so mysterious and powerful, then we cannot just sit and wait for death. This time, we must take the initiative to attack and give the other party a fatal blow." Tang Zheng nodded his head in agreement. This was also his point of view. If the other party received the news and escaped, then they would not be able to find him in this boundless land. Therefore, you did the right thing. You must not let that girl surnamed Li go back and spread the news. In order to avoid future troubles, we must get rid of her now. Tian Chanzi said decisively. With a thought from Tang Zheng, Li Xiaotian flew out from Sumeru World and lay on the sofa motionless. Tang Zheng looked around and discovered that everyone was curiously looking at Li Xiaotian. Even Nana was no exception. Nana was ignorant and asked curiously, "Is Sister Li asleep?" She had seen Li Xiaotian before and had a deep impression of him. Tang Zheng's heart moved. The child was here, so he naturally could not kill her at home and dirty the house. Thus, he smiled at Nana and said, "Nana, go back to your room and play." Nana stared suspiciously and returned to her room under the guidance of Mu Hongyan. Tang Zheng looked at everyone and said, "I will take her out first." Marshall hated Li Shan to the bone and said, "You must kill her. You cannot let her harm others." Regarding Li Xiaotian's various actions, Marshall had long been unable to suppress her anger and killing intent. This vicious woman had almost caused her to lose 2 of her most important people. How could she forgive her? Tang Zheng nodded and carried Li Xiaotian out of the villa and walked straight into a nearby forest. Looking at her beautiful face, Tang Zheng sighed. In your next life, be a good person. Don't be so scheming and have a heart as poisonous as snakes and scorpions. Tang Zheng was about to put her down when he discovered that she was slowly opening her eyes and waking up. Tang Zheng's heart trembled and he subconsciously let go of her hand. Bang! Li Xiaotian came into close contact with the ground. She cried out, "It hurts, it hurts." Tears actually flowed out of her eyes as she cried like a pear blossom in the rain. Tang Zheng was shocked as he looked at her in disbelief. Didn't she become a fool because of the soul-searching technique? How could she still cry out in pain so clearly and even cry? Especially that gaze just now, it was incomparably clear, like a baby's eyes, without any impurities or emotions. This was completely different from the dim and unfocused eyes of a foolish person. Tang Zheng's heart jumped. Could it be that something unexpected had happened? However, his strength was much higher than Li Xiaotian's, so he was not worried. Even if there was a problem, he could personally take care of her. Li Xiaotian cried as she wiped the tears from her eyes. She turned her head and looked at Tang Zheng with a wronged expression and said, "Why did you throw me to the ground? It hurts." Her eyes were red and she had a pitiful look on her face. Tang Zheng did not dare lower his guard. He coldly snorted and said, "Stop pretending. How can this amount of pain be considered?" He was already certain that Li Xiaotian had not become a fool. Vampires would not become foolish under his soul-searching technique, so the aftereffects of the soul-searching technique could not be lumped together. It was just that most people would become foolish, and a small portion would be less affected. You say I'm pretending? How can this be an act? You can try it yourself if you don't believe me. My butt really hurts. She gently rubbed her butt as she mumbled. Li Xiaoyan, at this point, you can stop acting. Tang Zheng said coldly. Li Xiaotian? You said my name is Li Xiaotian? Ah, why can't I remember who I am? Where is this and who are you? Li Xiaotian's clear eyes were filled with confusion. She hugged her head and shook it vigorously. Am I really called Li Xiaotian? What kind of person am I? And who are you to me? Li Xiaotian fired out a series of questions that made Tang Jing dumbfounded. Could it be that the aftereffects of the soul-searching technique was to erase her memories? He definitely could not believe her so easily. Tang Jing secretly clenched his teeth as he recalled Li Xiaotian's actions. She was too cunning. What if she was pretending? Can you answer my questions? I'm so scared. Why can't I remember anything? Why did I become like this? Her face revealed a panicked expression that was very realistic. For a moment, Tang Jing could not tell if it was real or fake. Tang Jing clenched his fists. At this time, killing her would be as easy as flipping his hand. Tang Jing secretly circulated his true qi, preparing to make his move. Li Xiaotian suddenly grabbed Tang Jing's clothes and looked at him pitifully, saying, "You were hugging me just now, so you must be my friend, right? Tell me what happened. I'm so scared." Her eyes were as clear as the world's purest spring water, just like a baby's eyes. This made Tang Jing's tightly clenched fists loosen a bit. A thought kept urging him in his mind, kill her. She is a liar. This is a lie. You can't be fooled by her. But when Tang Jing looked at those eyes, he knew that they were not the eyes of the Li Xiaotian of the past. Even if Li Xiaotian pretended to be pitiful, her eyes were still filled with craftiness. Tang Jing had been with her for a long time, so she definitely could not fool him. But when he looked at that familiar face, he could not help but think of her misdeeds. Chapter 884. Tang Jing looked into her eyes and wanted to make a move several times, but he gave up in the end. If she really lost her memories, then he wouldn't be killing the real Li Xiaotian, but a completely new person with no memories. If she was still the original Li Xiaotian, then he wouldn't hesitate and wouldn't show any mercy. Could it be that this was the will of the heavens, giving her a chance to turn over a new leaf? This was equivalent to her being reborn. You really don't remember anything from the past? Tang Jing asked. Li Xiaoan shook her head. I don't remember anything. You're not lying to me? Why would I lie to you? I've never lied to anyone. Tang Jing had always wanted to find a flaw in her. As long as there was a trace of a flaw, he would make a move without hesitation. But he didn't find a single flaw. It seemed that he wouldn't be able to figure it out with just a few words. Since that was the case, then he would deal with her a bit more. He didn't choose to go home. Instead, he took her out of the small forest and into the bustling street. When observing a person, it was best to blend into the environment. At this time, her vigilance would be lowered and she would involuntarily reveal a flaw. Seeing that Tang Jing was silent, Li Xiaotian asked, "Are we friends?" Tang Jing sneered. They were mortal enemies, but he didn't say that. Instead, he asked, "What do you think?" "I think." She subconsciously recalled the scene when Tang Jing hugged her. Her cheeks turned red. "You hugged me just now. Are we a couple?" "Couple?" Tang Jing staggered and almost fell down. "Who would want to be a couple with you? That would be courting death. What's wrong? Could it be that I guessed correctly?" Li Xiaotian asked with bright eyes. "No," Tang Jing said in a bad mood. "No means no. Why are you so fierce? So scary?" Li Xiaotian pouted, looking pitiful. Tang Jing glared at her speechlessly. "You dare to say that I'm scary? You're the one who's scary. Then why don't you tell me about my past?" Li Xiaotian said with a smile. "What happened to you in the past?" Tang Jing muttered to himself. If he told her the truth, how would she feel? But if she really had no memory, wouldn't that make her become the black-bellied woman in the past? That would be a great sin. Tang Jing thought for a while and said, "You used to be an ordinary girl." "Ordinary girl? Don't I have anything special about me?" She seemed a little disappointed. "What do you want to be different?" She tilted her head and thought for a while before shaking her head and saying, "I don't know either." The two of them chatted casually. Tang Jing had been secretly observing her reaction, but he hadn't found any flaws yet. Suddenly, a scream broke the silence. Tang Jing hurriedly turned his head to look at the source of the sound. He saw a woman standing on the street screaming, staring at a child in the middle of the road. A car was speeding towards the child. He had already stepped on the brakes, but it was too late. The woman had been scared silly. She was like a puppet, only knowing how to scream. There was no doubt that the child must be her child. Seeing a child about to die under the wheel of a car, Tang Zheng was ready to save the child but found that a figure had already rushed over like lightning and hugged the child. Bang! The car hit the person. She and the child flew up together and fell to the ground far away. But she always held the child in her arms and let her back touch the ground. Tang Zheng was also stunned by this scene. It was Li Xiaotian who saved the child. The real Li Xiaotian would never do such a thing. She would only think about herself. Why would she risk her life to save a little life that had nothing to do with her? All of this subverted Tang Zheng's understanding and reduced his suspicion of Li Xiaotian by a lot. However, seeing her rush out quickly and use such a clumsy method to save the child, Tang Zheng was a little confused. Li Xiaotian's power was still there, but she had lost her memory, so she didn't know that she had such great ability. Just now, she had only reacted instinctively and rushed over as fast as she could. Then she didn't know what to do next. So she was directly sent flying. If she dies from the collision, then I don't have to worry about whether to kill her or not. No, this was too despicable. Tang Zheng hurriedly shook his head. She risked her life to save someone, but he cursed her to die. This was too immoral. He rushed over quickly and found Li Xiaotian lying on the ground, grimacing and twitching her mouth in pain. But her eyes looking at the child in her arms were particularly gentle. She gently touched the child's face and asked with concern, "Little friend, are you okay?" The child was scared out of his wits and was stunned. He stared at her with his eyes wide open. Suddenly, the child burst into tears. Li Xiaotian panicked and quickly got up. She checked the child with both hands and said anxiously, "Little friend, don't cry. Did you fall down somewhere? Tell me, let's go to the hospital." That anxious look definitely didn't seem to be fake. Tang Zheng stood aside and quietly observed her every move. He couldn't help but feel absurd. Did the soul-searching technique really transform the two-faced woman, erase her memory, and turn her into such a caring person? Even so, the soul-searching technique erased only her memory, and now her reaction was more like instinct, that is to say, her nature was not bad. It was only because she received training and education from Li Palace from an early age that she became a cynical woman little by little. At this moment, she returned to her most innocent face. At the beginning of man, his nature was good, and this was her initial period. Since God let her start over, I can't push her into the dark abyss again. Looking at her heartfelt concern for the child, Tang Zheng silently made up his mind. "Come and help me see him. What's wrong with him? Is he hurt?" Li Xiaotian anxiously shouted at Tang Zheng, completely unaware that her elbow had been bleeding. At this time, the child's mother finally woke up from her dream and rushed over crazily. She hugged the child and said, "Baby, mom is here. Did you fall down somewhere?" Tang Zheng walked over and comforted her, "Big sister, don't worry. The child is fine. He was just frightened." The child's mother also saw the scene just now and knew that the child didn't fall to the ground. It was the little girl in front of her who saved her child. Thump. Her legs went soft and she directly knelt in front of Li Xiaotian. She sobbed and said, "Miss, thank you for saving my child. You are the benefactor of my entire family." Thank you, woo-woo." Li Xiaotian quickly helped him up. There were already a lot of onlookers gathered around them. They were all talking at once, but without exception, they were all praising Li Xiaotian. There were also those who praised the child's life. Put. It was unknown who was the first to clap, but then, the applause sounded like a tide, and many people gave Li Xiaotian a thumbs up. The driver also stopped the car and walked over in a daze. This time, it wasn't his fault. The child ran into the middle of the road when the mother wasn't paying attention. When the driver saw it, he braked, but it was too late. The driver saw that the child was fine and looked at Li Xiaotian. He asked nervously, "Miss, how are you?" Li Xiaotian finally reacted and cried out in pain. Looking at the blood on her elbow and the faint pain from her back, Her tears fell like a kite with a broken string. Previously, she couldn't stop crying when she was thrown to the ground by Tang Zheng. Now that she was hit by a car, the pain was many times more intense. But just now, all her thoughts were on the child and she didn't feel the pain. Now that she calmed down, she felt as if her whole body was falling apart. Seeing her cry heartbreakingly, the others were very distressed. The child's mother quickly said, "Miss, let's go to the hospital to check if you fell." "That's right, you must go to the hospital for a checkup. You're a good Samaritan." Nowadays, people don't even dare to help the elderly. There aren't many good people like you left. We can't let the lady do a good deed and still be disappointed. Everyone said at once. "Take my car." The driver also said, "Am I seriously injured?" Li Xiaotian moved her muscles and bones like a pear blossom in the rain. She took a deep breath and said, "I think it should be fine. It's just a little painful." "If it's painful, then you should go to the hospital to check." Tang Zheng grabbed Li Xiaotian's hand and used his qi to check her injuries. He found that she only had a superficial wound and her elbow was scraped. Other than that, there was nothing serious. After all, she had skills. Even if she didn't know how to use them, she was much better than ordinary people. That powerful impact was automatically dissolved, so she naturally didn't suffer any injuries. However, her startled appearance was really worrying. The people next to her kept urging her to go to the hospital. "There's no need to go to the hospital. Your body is fine," Tang Zheng lightly said. Li Xiaotian discovered that he was grabbing her hand. Her eyes widened in surprise as she asked, "You also have medical skills?" "I know a little," Tang Zheng said. "Wow, then you're too amazing. Am I really okay?" "It's only a little superficial wound. Go back and apply some medicine," Tang Zheng said. "Young man, this is not a small matter. Don't leave any sequelae. That would be troublesome and ruin the miss's life." Some people didn't believe Tang Zheng. Seeing more and more people gathering, Tang Zheng didn't want Li Xiaotian to be exposed. So, he pulled her hand and quickly squeezed out of the crowd. "Benefactor, I still haven't thanked you." Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear. He pulled Li Xiaotian and turned a corner before stopping. Li Xiaotian's face was brimming with a brilliant smile and said, "Why are we running? Don't leave your name when doing a good deed. Don't you know?" Chapter 885. It was already late and the villa was lit up with bright lights. A group of people were sitting together watching TV. Our station is reporting that a courageous act happened in Beijing this afternoon. A woman rushed into the street without a care for her own safety. She would rather be hit by a car to protect a child she did not know. She did a good deed without leaving her name and quietly left. Fortunately, she was not injured. Next, please watch the latest report from our station's reporter. The host of the TV station reported with perfect pronunciation. The scene changed. It was the mother and child of the child involved, as well as other onlookers. Everyone was talking at once, describing the scene they saw, praising the woman who acted bravely for a just cause, admiring her actions. Finally, the host concluded, "Who said that the world is cold and there are no good people? This is the living Lei Feng of the new era, a practitioner of positive energy." As a mother, Mu Hongyan's attention was attracted by the news. She subconsciously hugged Nana tightly. Nana looked at the TV and said, "Mom, is that Sister Superman?" Mu Hongyan laughed involuntarily. "She is not Superman. She is a brave sister. Even if she is Superman, she is not as good as brother," Nana said in a childish voice. In her heart, Tang Zheng was the most powerful person in the world. Looking at her incomparably serious expression, Mu Hongyan sighed in her heart. Yes, there is no one in the world more powerful than Tang Zheng, at least to the mother and daughter. So when you grow up, you have to learn from this sister. You have to be a brave girl, understand? Mu Hongyan said patiently. Nana nodded heavily. Nana will become a brave child. This sister is so good. Mom always says that good people have good lives. Is this sister the same? Of course, so you have to be a good person. Yes, Nana will remember. The others also saw the news and thought at the same time that if they were in her shoes, they would definitely do the same. However, if an ordinary person dared to do this, it would require a lot of courage. They couldn't help but admire him from the bottom of their hearts. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps came from outside the door. Nana jumped down from Mu Hongyan's arms and ran to the door while shouting happily, "Brother is back." The door opened, and two figures stood at the entrance. Everyone turned their heads to look, but in an instant, their eyes turned cold as they looked at Li Shaoan beside Tang Zheng in disbelief. "Wow, Sister Li Xiaotian, you're back too." Nana was still a child, so she didn't know who Li Xiaotian was, so she greeted her obediently. Li Xiaotian's face also lit up with joy. Although she didn't remember Nana, but looking at Nana's appearance, she couldn't help but exclaim, "What a cute little girl." She made a gesture to hug Nana, scaring Mu Hongyan so much that she turned pale with fright and screamed, "Don't!" Li Shaoan was slightly startled and subconsciously stopped, looking blankly at Mu Hongyan. Mu Hongyan rushed to Nana and hugged her in her arms, as if she was afraid that something would happen to her. The other people's faces changed greatly as they looked at Li Xiaotian warily, ready to attack at any time. Li Shaoan was stunned and looked at everyone at a loss. Tang Zheng knew that there was a misunderstanding, so he quickly explained, "Everyone, calm down, it's not what you think." He originally wanted to go out and get rid of Li Xiaotian, but now he brought back a living person, and this living person was obviously no different from a normal person, not a fool. This made them horrified. Seeing how calm Tang Zheng was, the others heaved a sigh of relief, but they were still looking at Li Xiaotian with unfriendly expressions. Looking at everyone's reaction, Li Xiaotian was at a loss for a moment. She trembled like a child who had done something wrong. She said nervously, "Hello, everyone, my name is Li Xiaotian. I'm very happy to meet you." Tang Zheng did not explain the situation at home to her beforehand, wanting to use this method to test her one last time. However, it was clear that Li Xiaotian had passed without the slightest flaw. As for bringing her home directly, Tang Zheng had no choice. He couldn't just leave her outside, that was even worse. She was like a blank piece of paper right now, lacking a lot of common sense and unable to live alone. Furthermore, there were so many people watching her at home, watching her in full view of everyone, just to prevent trouble before it happened. All in all, Tang Zheng was still on guard against her, just that he did it without leaving any traces. Marshall hated Li Shaoan to the bone, stared at her with an ominous glint, gritted her teeth and said, "Why did you bring her back?" "I'll explain in a moment. Everyone sit down first." "Li Xiaoyan, you sit too," Tang Zheng said gently. Marshall sat down hatefully, but her gaze was firmly locked onto Li Shaoan. Li Shaoan cowered behind Tang Zheng and muttered, "Her eyes are so scary." Nana, who was in Mu Hongyan's embrace, stared at Li Xiaotian with her big black eyes and said, "Sister Nana, don't be afraid. You have to be a brave girl, just like the girl who saved people on TV. Nana will also be a brave child." Li Xiaotian popped out from behind Tang Zheng and said with a smile, "I'll listen to you. Big sister will be a brave girl. Yes, you still have to save people, just like Superman. I saved someone just now." The fear in Li Xiaotian's heart was melted by Nana's sincere smile, and she subconsciously said. However, she immediately remembered Tang Zheng's warning that she couldn't leave her name behind when she did a good deed, so she couldn't publicize it like this, so she stuck out her tongue and hurriedly stopped talking. Did the sun rise from the west? Everyone looked at Li Xiaotian in disbelief. It was good enough that she did not harm people, but she actually saved people. How was that possible? Moreover, she even stuck out her tongue. Was this kind of cute expression something she could make? Confused. Everyone was confused. Seeing everyone looking at her as if she was an alien, Li Xiaotian stuck out her tongue and said embarrassedly, "Tang Zheng said to not leave your name behind when doing good deeds. I won't say that again." Not leaving your name behind when doing good deeds? Come on, have you ever done a good deed? Everyone looked at each other and really did not understand what was going on. Tang Zheng coughed and motioned for everyone to sit down and talk. Then he told the truth. Li Xiaotian lost her memory. She doesn't remember anything from the past, so don't make a fuss. Amnesia? How was that possible? This kind of thing could be understood if it happened to other people, but for it to happen to Li Xiaotian, it was inconceivable. She really saved people? Mu Hongyan asked. Tang Jing nodded and told her what happened in the afternoon. Li Xiaotian lowered her head in embarrassment and waved her hands. This is what I should do. That child is too dangerous. Mu Hongyan suddenly remembered the news she had just seen. Wasn't Tang Zhang's description consistent with the news? Could it be that the living Lei Feng, superwoman, was Li Xiaoyan? The person in the news was her? News? She's actually on the news? Tang Jing said in surprise. Mu Hongyan quickly repeated the contents of the news. Tang Jing nodded and confirmed that it was her. Immediately, everyone's emotions were complicated. Just a moment ago, they were praising this person's greatness and bravery. At this moment, they realized that this person was actually their enemy. Wu growled in disbelief. No, it can't be her. She can't be that kind-hearted. Li Xiaotian's face turned pale. She looked at Wu pitifully and muttered in grievance, I really did it. Impossible. Li Xiaotian had targeted Tang Jing time and time again, and had almost killed Tang Jing and Lan Yu. How could she forgive him so easily? Lan Yu had been silently observing Wu the entire time. She had almost died at the hands of Li Xiaoyan, so the anger in her heart was naturally not small. However, all she saw in Li Xiaoyan's eyes was sincerity, without the slightest bit of cunning. She had seen countless people, and if one wanted to deceive her, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens. However, she did not notice any clues from beginning to end. She could not help but become suspicious. Could it be that Li Xiaotian had really lost his memories and his personality had changed? She could not be sure, but she believed in her son. Seeing Wu so agitated, she hurriedly advised, Wu, don't be agitated. Let's listen to what they have to say first. Li Xiaotian lowered his head like a child who had done something wrong and said pitifully, Was I very bad in the past? That's why you all hate me so much? You're not just bad. You're bad to the bones. Wu said with an ashen face. Wu. Li Xiaotian covered his face and buried his head in his knees as he cried. Everyone looked at Li Xiaotian as if they had seen a ghost. She was actually crying. One must know that Li Xiaotian was the holy maiden of Li Palace. In her entire life, other than crying when she was young, she had never cried when she grew up. But at this moment, she was actually crying in front of everyone. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They really did not know how to describe this scene. Tang Zheng had already seen this side of Li Xiaotian before, so he was not surprised and said, Don't cry. Your previous actions were indeed inappropriate, but that was all in the past. Li Xiaotian raised his head and looked at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze. You're saying that what she said is true? Was I really a bad person in the past? Tang Zheng was silent. This matter would be exposed sooner or later. It would be more useful to say it earlier than to hide it. Seeing that Tang Zheng had tacitly agreed, Li Xiaotian's face turned ashen. His face was pale as he muttered to himself in distress, Why is it like this? How could I be a bad person in the past? I don't want to be a bad person. I want to be a good person. I want to be a good person who saves people. When I saved that child, I was very happy. I like that feeling. I don't want to be a bad person. Her nagging appearance was extremely painful and made people's hearts ache. But when they thought of her previous actions, they could not sympathize with her. Tang Jing patted her shoulder. For a moment, he did not know how to comfort her. Who would have thought that Li Xiaotian would take the opportunity to lean on his shoulder and tightly grasp his hand and say, I want to be a good person, not a bad person. Seeing her tightly grasp Tang Zheng's hand and even intimately lean on his shoulder, everyone's expression became strange. How could a life-and-death enemy become so intimate in the blink of an eye? Moreover, after losing his memories, why was Li Xiaotian so weak? Chapter 886. After Tang Jing comforted her for a while, Li Xiaotian finally calmed down and sent her back to her room to rest. When Tang Jing came downstairs, he saw that everyone was staring at him. Everyone lower your voice. Tell me what you think. Tang Zheng knew that everyone had yet to speak freely, so he spoke out all the questions in his heart. Why didn't you kill her? Wu Yu looked at him resentfully and asked. I wanted to kill her. If she was still the Li Xiaotian of the past, then I would not hesitate to kill her. But when she woke up, she found that she had lost all her memories and was no longer the Li Xiaotian of the past. I killed a stranger. How could it be a stranger? She's still Li Xiaotian. Marshall was overbearing. You all know about her actions of saving people. Do you think that if it was the real Li Xiaotian, she would do that? So I feel that she is no longer the original Li Xiaotian. It's easy to change mountains and rivers, but it's hard to change one's nature. Tang Zheng did not deny it and only said, if she really becomes the Li Xiaoyan of the past, then I will personally end her. Marshal Qi was obviously dissatisfied with Tang Zheng's actions. Fang Shishir did not have much contact with Li Xiaotian, so she was kind-hearted and did not blame Tang Zheng. Instead, she asked curiously, then do you think that she will become like before? Tang Zheng was momentarily at a loss for words, because she was also unable to give a definite answer. Look, even you can't be sure. What if she becomes like before? So it's better to kill her as soon as possible. Marshall insisted, if you can't do it, I'll do it. No way. Tang Zheng would not let Wu's hands be stained with innocent blood. He sighed and said earnestly, Wu, I understand your thoughts. Her past actions were indeed very bad, and I also hate her, but how can a person not be wrong? As the old saying goes, knowing one's wrongs and being able to change is the greatest. Furthermore, a prodigal son turning back is not worth changing. If she really becomes a good person, why should we kill a good person? You're eloquent. I can't win against you. Marshall said angrily. What do you think? Tang Zheng turned his gaze to Lan Yu. She was the person involved and had the most right to speak. Lan Yu looked at his son with a burning gaze, and only after a long time did he say, Tang Zheng, you are a kind-hearted person. I am very gratified. Since you think you can give her a second chance, then I agree. Although Lan Yu was a bit hesitant, seeing how resolute her son was, she agreed. Mu Hongyan nodded and said, actually, she saved that innocent child today, which at least proves that she is a good person at this moment. Since she is a good person now, and also has a good heart, we can't kill her now. She was a person with a child, so she could especially understand how that child's family would feel if Li Xiaotian did not make a move today, so she wholeheartedly agreed with Tang Zheng. Princess and took the lead and said, the Lord will give people a chance to turn over a new leaf. I believe in Tang Zheng's vision. Empyrean Fairy shrugged and said, an insignificant person, whether or not he dies, will not change the overall situation. Obviously, in her eyes, she still thought that Li Xiaotian's level was too low, so he was not a concern. Yi Dingdang saw that everyone was looking at him, so he raised his eyebrows and said, I agree with Marshall. Killing him will be neat and tidy. Immediately, Marshall felt that Yi Dingdang was a close friend. There were many similarities in their personalities, and they both hated evil. Tang Zheng also hated evil, but Li Xiaotian's actions today had moved him, so he decided to give her another chance. Seeing that most people agreed with him, Tang Zheng nodded and said, then we will do this for now. However, Marshall and Dingdong's opinions are worth paying attention to. One should not have the heart to harm others, but one must guard against others. Letting her live in our house is to guard against her. I will keep an eye on her. If she dares to act blindly without thinking, I will definitely not show mercy. Marshall said with a murderous aura. Tang Zheng did not oppose. Actually, as long as we guide her, if she really stands with us, then in the future when we deal with the Azure Dragon Palace, she might be able to play an unexpected role. Empyrean Fairy said meaningfully. Tang Zheng's heart moved as he understood the Empyrean Fairy's meaning. If Li Xiaotian was a spy, then it would be twice the result with half the effort. But there were too many variables, so they did not dare to take such a risk and let Li Xiaotian return. Moreover, they had already dealt with Rockefeller, so they wanted to point their swords at the Azure Dragon Palace. There was no need to take such a risk. No need. Tang Zheng rejected. Empyrean Fairy said without thinking, then pretend I didn't say anything. Where's Tianchanzi? How come I don't see him? Tang Zheng looked around but did not find Tianchanzi's figure. Master went to live somewhere else. He said that the smell of women here is too strong. Fang Shishir said with a smile. Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Speaking of morals, if he wants to stay, I won't let him stay. In this villa, other than Tang Zheng, everyone was a woman. Even the mosquitoes were female. The smell of cosmetics was indeed heavy. However, Tang Zheng's 9-yang holy body was very suitable for this place. The next day, Tianchanzi came early in the morning. When he heard about Li Xiaoyan's situation, he did not have much of a reaction. Just like Empyrean Fairy, he did not put Li Xiaotian in his eyes and thought that it was not related to the overall situation. Not long after, Yen Potion's call came. It turned out that the enemy's whereabouts were already known. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. The Yen family did not disappoint him. They actually dug out the whereabouts of this group of people so quickly. Although everyone took the initiative to volunteer, in the end, only Tang Zheng, Tianchanzi and Lan Yu participated in the operation. The others stayed at home. The enemy was not weak, and he did not know what moves they had. Therefore, it was better to be careful and not let too many people participate in the battle. Although the others also wanted to participate in the battle, they had no choice but to work hard at home and continue to cultivate. Lan Yu was very happy to see that Tang Zheng actually agreed to her travel and looked at him deeply. Although Tang Zheng did not respond, she still felt that her relationship with him was improving. Perhaps in the near future, she would be able to hear him call her mother. The three of them arrived at the agreed location with Yen Potian. This was a wide street, and it was actually the embassy area. There were embassies of various countries in this place. Among them, the embassy of the Atlantic Empire was the largest and most conspicuous. The entrance was guarded by tall soldiers armed with live ammunition. Ordinary people would not be able to enter at all. Tang Zheng faintly discovered that there were already many suspicious Huaxia faces on the streets, staring at the Atlantic Empire's embassy from afar or close by. Yen Pin brought his son and grandson and walked over and said, "We found these guys." "Where is it?" Yen Padian pointed to the Atlantic Empire's embassy. "They are hiding inside. These people are really cunning. I spent a lot of effort to dig them out. No one would have thought that they would openly hide inside the embassy. I have already sent people to monitor the embassy. They will not be able to escape." So those Huaxia faces were from the Yen family. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that Rockefeller was indeed a group of cunning old foxes. Hiding in the embassy made Tang Zheng hesitate and not dare to barge in. This was Rockefeller's little thought. However, they had still underestimated Tang Zheng's determination. He had already prepared a case with the chief, so the other party definitely knew that these people were hiding in the embassy. However, the chief still tacitly agreed to Tang Zheng's actions, which meant that they had a premonition of the situation and a corresponding countermeasure. Since that was the case, what else did Tang Zheng have to worry about? Yen Padian did not know about this and said worriedly, "If we were to barge into the embassy, then the nature of the matter would change. Shouldn't we be more cautious?" Tang Zheng snorted coldly and said disapprovingly, "If we miss this village, we won't be able to have this shop. We can't guard them outside the embassy for a lifetime. If we wait for a long time, they will find a way to slip away, so there's no time to lose. Are we really going to barge in? Then the impact." Yen Padian said worriedly, "Even if the sky falls, I will carry it. Moreover, even if we get rid of them, we won't be able to step down. The Atlantic Empire is very powerful, but I, Huaxia, am no longer the same as before. Back then, when they bombed our embassy, we didn't settle the score with them because our national strength was still weak. Now, I want to follow their example. If they really don't know what's good for them, I don't mind letting them taste the feeling of the embassy being destroyed." Tang Zheng said with righteous indignation. Tianchanzi chuckled, patted Tang Zheng's shoulder, and praised, "Good boy, you have guts." Yen Pin laughed bitterly in his heart. He looked at them speechlessly, but he did not hesitate to express his stance. "Then we will vote for them." The Yen family and Tang Zheng advanced and retreated together. Even if Tang Zheng wanted to attack a country, the Yen family would not hesitate to take the lead and follow. How do we get in? Of course, if we can get rid of Rockefeller quietly, there is no need for us to make everyone know about it and make too much of a fuss. Therefore, we will sneak in secretly. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment before deciding. That means we can't bring too many people in, and the enemy definitely has a lot of people. Do we have a chance of winning? Yen Padian asked worriedly. I've fought with Nicholas before, so I know his background, so I think our chances of winning are very high. Tang Zheng said, but everyone still has to take care of themselves. After we deal with them, we still have to retreat and scathe. Don't worry, we can control the people outside at any time. If there really is too much danger, we can order the people outside to rush in and help at any time. At most, we can turn the world upside down. Yen Padian said indifferently. Obviously, he was also a daring person. If he really made up his mind to do it, he wouldn't have too many worries. The few of them looked at each other and nodded. In order to avoid any trouble, they didn't even wait until it was dark and immediately took action. So, the few of them turned into a few afterimages and flipped over the tall walls of the embassy. They did not trigger the alarm and even directly avoided the surveillance and patrolling soldiers. As for where exactly Rockefeller was hiding in the embassy, they did not know for the time being, but the ambassador definitely knew, so they wanted to kidnap him. This kind of thing that could easily cause international disputes was like child's play to them, and they didn't care at all. Chapter 887. Who are you? How dare you trespass into the Atlantic Empire's embassy? The ambassador scolded in fluent Huaxia. Tang Zheng rushed over like a ferocious tiger, grabbing at the opponent. The ambassador actually retreated at lightning speed. It was definitely not the reaction speed of an ordinary person. You actually dodged it. Let's see how long you can hide. Tang Zheng was as fast as lightning. This time, the other party didn't even have time to react before falling into Tang Zheng's hands. What are you doing? The ambassador scolded with a red face. Tang Zheng was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. He directly grabbed his neck and asked fiercely, "Where are the Rockefeller people hiding?" The ambassador's eyes flashed with a trace of undetectable panic. If Tang Zheng was a bit further away, he definitely wouldn't have noticed it. But now that the two of them were so close, not a single change in the ambassador could escape Tang Zheng's sharp eyes. He definitely knows. Tang Zheng judged. I don't know what you're talking about. This is the embassy, the territory of the Atlantic Empire. You are invading. You have to take responsibility. The ambassador roared. Tang Zheng sneered. You want to use your voice to attract others to save you? I advise you to give up on that idea. As for the bullshit Western Empire's territory, so what if I'm here? You're not a gentleman. You're a robber, a terrorist. F***ck, your Atlantic Empire calls whoever you don't like a terrorist. Are you used to it? Let me tell you, if you don't tell the truth, don't even think about walking out of this door. Tang Zheng wasn't a gentleman at all. He tightened his grip. I won't say it even if you beat me to death. The ambassador would rather die than submit. Is that so? Since you want to die, then I'll fulfill your wish. Tang Zheng had the soul search technique. It was too easy to dig out the secrets from the ambassador. Just use the soul search technique. Why are you wasting time with him? Tian Chanzi impatiently urged. Tang Zheng immediately cast the technique, but suddenly his hand loosened. The ambassador turned into a cloud of black smoke and then into a large bat. He escaped from Tang Zheng's hands and flapped his wings to fly out the door. Blood Clan. Several people cried out in alarm. Who would have thought that even the ambassador was a vampire? The Atlantic Empire had actually been infiltrated by vampires to such an extent that even a high-ranking official was no exception. Don't even think about leaving. Tang Zheng's aura skyrocketed. When he faked his death, he lost the War Soul Sword and it fell into the hands of the Blood Clan. This time, not only did he want to exterminate the Blood Clan, he also wanted to retrieve the War Soul Sword. Therefore, how could he allow the other party to escape? He stretched out his hand and used the sky-swallowing technique. The powerful suction force immediately caused the airflow in the room to become chaotic. The fleeing figure of the ambassador suddenly stopped, and then he screamed as he was sucked back into Tang Zheng's palm. Let's see how you can escape. Looking at the big bat in his hand, Tang Zheng felt disgusted and grabbed its head without hesitation. In an instant, Tang Zheng searched through all the information in the ambassador's mind. However, the other party was a vampire, and the damage to his brain was immediately healed. Thus, he wasn't stupid and roared at the top of his lungs, "You're challenging Rockefeller and provoking the Atlantic Empire. You'll die miserably, and your country will be consigned to eternal damnation. You're still boasting shamelessly when you're about to die." Tang Zheng coldly berated as the suction force in his palm increased. Swoosh! With a flash of black light, the ambassador disappeared from Tang Zheng's palm and was sucked in. This was the first time the others had seen this scene. They all stared curiously and asked, "Where did he go?" "I don't know, but he's definitely dead." Tang Zheng shook his head. "I already know where Rockefeller is hiding. Let's end this quickly." Tian Chanzi had long since sealed the room, so no matter how shrill and loud the ambassador's voice was, it couldn't be transmitted out. The soldiers outside didn't know that the ambassador no longer existed. When Tang Zheng and the others opened the door and walked out, the other party was obviously stunned. Tang Zheng moved like lightning, and the other party immediately fainted on the ground. Then the group went straight for their target. The basement was extremely wide and huge. It was very similar to the basement under the Rockefeller family's castle in the Atlantic Empire, except that it was a smaller version. When Tang Zheng and the others broke in, they saw a scene that made them burn with anger. There were actually many corpses of young girls in the basement. The blood on their bodies had been sucked dry, and they looked like dried corpses. Some of them weren't dead yet, but the vampires were biting their throats and sucking their blood. They were still struggling, but it was all in vain. Their blood was rapidly flowing out, and their faces were as pale as paper. This was a demon's den. "Beast!" Tang Zheng roared. Looking at their faces, these women were all Huaxia people. This group of vampires actually sucked the blood of Huaxia people. In the past, I've always heard that women often went missing in Sanlitun, but we couldn't find any clues. I'm afraid they were brought here by this group of beasts. Yen Luyun said with red eyes. That bar street was a place where many foreigners lingered, and many Huaxia women were the most enthusiastic about these foreigners. There were even many who wanted to hook up with these foreigners. They probably never dreamed that such a cruel scene would be waiting for them. "Let's go on a killing spree and kill all of these bastards." Tang Zheng roared. He was extremely angry. He took the lead and charged forward. A vampire bared his teeth, revealing 2 long fangs. "Die!" Tang Zheng roared. He grabbed the other party's body like lightning and tore it in half. Although vampires had strong healing abilities, they were unable to recover from this degree of injury and died immediately. The other people's attacks were also very sharp, especially Lan Yu. Seeing the other party kill women like this, she was seething with anger. She swept out her palm and hit ahead. Like a ripe watermelon, it immediately exploded into a bloody mist. Roar. A few werewolves also jumped out and quickly transformed. Their large bodies pounced over, their sharp claws clawing at the people. They didn't dodge at all, choosing to meet force with force. Apart from Yen Luyan, everyone here was at least a master-level martial artist, so they weren't afraid at all when facing these vampires and werewolves. On the contrary, because of their anger, their attacks were especially clean, all of them aiming to kill in one blow. In an instant, the ground was littered with the corpses of many vampires and werewolves, and most of them were incomplete. The other women who were lucky enough to survive stared blankly at this scene. They originally thought that they were going to die, but they didn't expect that there would be a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel, and a group of their compatriots would appear. These compatriots were very powerful and efficient. These monsters weren't their match at all. However, their brains had already lost the ability to think, and they could only stare blankly at the tragic battle. Tang Zheng was in the mood to kill, and charged into the crowd as if there was no one around. After a few rounds, More than 10 vampires and werewolves had already fallen at his feet. However, after searching through the crowd, he couldn't find Nicholas's figure. Impossible. The information in the ambassador's mind indicated that Nicholas was in the basement. He widened his eyes and searched through the crowd, but he still couldn't find any trace of him. The vampires and werewolves finally knew that they were no match for this group of Huaxia people. Some of the smarter ones immediately fled toward the exit. Xiaobai, guard the exit. Don't let anyone escape. Tang Jing roared. Xiaobai leaped and floated in the air above the exit. He saw a werewolf and a vampire rushing over. Immediately, with a boom, he spat out a ball of flame. The two fellows immediately turned into two balls of flame and fled in all directions. However, after a few leaps, they fell to the ground motionlessly and were burned to ashes. One man guarding the pass, 10,000 men couldn't get through. No one could escape from the exit. Xiaobai was lazy. These fellows couldn't arouse his interest at all. The disparity in strength was too great. Looking at Xiaobai's smug look, Tang Zheng couldn't laugh. These werewolves and vampires deserved to die, and he didn't pity them at all. However, what made him distressed was that Nicholas had disappeared, and the War Soul Sword was nowhere to be found. Damn it, the War Soul Sword must be in Nicholas's hands. I must find him and eliminate him. Another werewolf rushed over. Tang Jing grabbed his huge head. The other party was very tall and tried to struggle, but found that he couldn't move at all. Tang Jing hurriedly used the soul-searching technique. Werewolves were not like vampires and could heal their injuries, so the werewolf's struggle immediately stopped, and he became stupid. Bang! After Tang Jing finished using the soul-searching technique, he punched the werewolf's chest. The werewolf's chest quickly caved in, and his back suddenly swelled up. He exploded into a bloody mist and fell to the ground. Tang Zheng's gaze turned and stared at a wall in the basement. He rushed over like an arrow, and his huge fist was like a cannonball, bombarding the wall. Boom! Stone fragments flew, and the wall trembled violently, revealing a big hole. This punch didn't penetrate the wall, but revealed the steel plate behind the stone. There's a door behind here. Tang Zheng roared, and the other's attention was immediately attracted. Nicholas is behind here. I'll do it. Tian Chanzi channeled his power and fiercely stomped down. Bang bang, the floor cracked inch by inch, like a spider web. Tian Chanzi roared. His fists were like angry dragons emerging from the sea, hitting the steel plate. Bang bang, the steel plate shook violently, and two black spots appeared. Thin cracks spread out from the black spots, and the cracks quickly expanded, covering the steel plate in an instant. Tian Chanzi raised his mouth and gently blew a breath. This breath seemed to be the last straw that broke the camel's back. Crush! The steel plate shattered into palm-sized pieces that clattered to the ground, revealing an empty room behind it. This room was even smaller and more secretive. At this moment, the room was already empty. There were surveillance cameras in the room, and everything in the basement outside could be clearly seen. There was no doubt that Nicholas must have seen the battle outside through the surveillance cameras. After weighing the pros and cons, he knew that he was no match for them, so he ran away. Why does this embassy have so many basements? There are even tunnels? Tang Zheng looked at the half-open door in front of him with an ashen face and said hatefully. The battle outside also came to an end. All the werewolves and vampires were killed, and only the lucky woman was left. Tang Zheng, without hesitation, chased after him. Chapter 888. Behind the door was a long passageway. After they entered, there was a circulation of air. Clearly, there was an exit on the other side. Tang Jing gave chase while dialing Ding Liang's number. The government must have been paying attention to their movements. Perhaps they were already making the necessary preparations. If that was the case, why not give them a big gift and let them avoid the Atlantic Empire's accusations? After all, they would cause a serious diplomatic disturbance if they barged into the embassy. Without a doubt, the dirty things in the basement were the best excuse to retaliate. It was just a matter of whether the government dared to break into the embassy. He roughly described what he saw and told Ding Liang to report it to the higher-ups. This was not something Ding Liang could decide. As for what the higher-ups would do, he did not worry. His main focus was on the Rockefeller family. Not long after, a door appeared in front of them. Behind the door was a large warehouse filled with all kinds of vegetables. Tang Jing looked back. The door was already closed and merged with the wall. He could not sense that there was another world behind the wall. This group of people was really cunning. They were obviously walking on a plank road, but they were secretly walking on a different path. This secret passage actually led to a warehouse. What was this place? There was another door in the warehouse. Tang Jing pushed it open without hesitation. A burst of smoke and oil rushed into their nostrils. The noise was like a tidal wave. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. This was actually a huge kitchen, and it was bustling with activity. Everyone was busy, and there were all kinds of delicious dishes in the pot. Where are they? Tang Jing growled. The chefs looked at the group of uninvited guests with puzzled faces. Did you see a few Westerners leave? Tang Jing hurriedly asked. Everyone shook their heads and said they did not know. Suddenly, they were dumbfounded. The tunnel led here, how could they not see it? No, they must have been in disguise to escape the eyes of these chefs who were working hard. Come, let's go out and take a look. Tang Jing did not give up. He rushed out of the kitchen with the others. Outside was a banquet hall. A wedding was being held. The bride and groom were holding the ceremony under the witness of all the guests. Tang Jing looked up and glanced around. There were many foreign faces in this wedding. Could these be Rockefeller's men? Tang Jing's heart moved, and he directly picked up the nearest foreigner and asked, "Are you Rockefeller's people?" The other party looked at him blankly, and then immediately became angry. Unexpectedly, he scolded him in fluent Huaxia language. "Who are you? What do you want?" Tang Jing raised his eyebrows. This person clearly wasn't very strong. Could it be that he wasn't one of Rockefeller's men? His gaze subconsciously swept towards the wedding stage. The groom was actually a foreign face, and the first few tables were also filled with foreigners. Tang Jing immediately realized that this was a multinational couple. The foreign faces among the guests were not necessarily Rockefeller's people. This is bad. Tang Jing was secretly anxious. According to his speculation, he was not far from Rockefeller. If he let him go like this, it would be harder to deal with him in the future. He could not let go of this opportunity. The arrival of these uninvited guests immediately caused the wedding scene to fall into silence. Especially when Tang Jing rudely mentioned the guest's behavior, it made the people around him exclaim. In an instant, everyone looked in their direction, pointing and whispering to each other. Tang Jing acted as if he didn't see it. Although he disturbed the wedding of the couple, he had no choice. He cupped his fist and gestured to the crowd, saying, "Sorry for the disturbance. Did anyone see any suspicious people from the Atlantic Empire? Who are you? Who let you barge in? Hurry up and get him out." The bride's mother flew into a rage and rushed over like a swarm of bees. She finally found a foreign rich husband and could hold her head high among her neighbors. How could she allow an outsider to ruin the wedding? Who is the suspicious person? I'm telling you, you are the most suspicious person. Get out of here right now. Her face was red and she scolded arrogantly. Tang Jing turned a deaf ear. His eyes swept through the crowd like a scanner. However, there were too many Western faces. For a moment, he couldn't distinguish who was from the Rockefeller family. As for Nicola's face, because there were too many people, he didn't see it. Seeing that Tang Jing didn't pay attention to her, the middle-aged woman shouted, "Security, hurry up and get these people out." Tang Jing had an intuition that Rockefeller's people were among these people because they couldn't have escaped so quickly. Tang Jing gestured to the others, and they all understood. In a flash, they shuttled through the banquet and stared at the Western faces with their fiery eyes. "What are you doing? Hurry up and get out!" Someone shouted. The guests rushed over like a swarm of bees to stop them. The scene suddenly fell into chaos. Tang Jing hurriedly channeled his energy. The others couldn't get close at all. However, it couldn't go on like this. Suddenly, Tang Jing saw a familiar figure from the corner of his eyes. He shouted, "Nicola!" As soon as his voice fell, a figure ran outside. "Stop!" Tang Jing leapt up like a falcon, leaping over the heads of the crowd, pouncing towards that figure. Bush, bush. However, several cold lights shot from all directions and went straight for Tang Jing's vital parts. There really is an accomplice. Tang Jing didn't panic. He hurriedly took out the holy armor shield. With a flash of light, dazzling sparks flew from the holy armor shield. Tang Jing wasn't hurt at all. Everyone saw this scene, and immediately screams sounded everywhere. The crowd ran in all directions, and the situation became even more chaotic. Tian Chanzi and the others didn't stay idle. They quickly locked onto the enemy who had just thrown the weapon and attacked quickly and accurately. Bang, bang, bang. Several balls of blood exploded. Immediately, the screams became even more intense. Some people couldn't tell the direction and directly bumped into them. The vampires were mixed in. With a flash of cold light, they directly attacked the vital parts of the people. A group of beasts. You want to sneak attack? Go to hell. Heaven Monk roared, with a wave of his finger. The sword chi swept out, piu piu piu. The sword chi passed through the head of one of the blood clan, and before the remaining force disappeared, it shot into the chest of another person, causing both of them to immediately fall to the ground and die. A series of roars sounded. The werewolves quickly transformed. They were tall and ferocious. Several ordinary people stood in front of them. They waved their claws and slapped at them. Bang! One of them flew out into the distance. "Beast, how dare you hurt people?" Lan Yu shouted. Her figure flashed like a dancing butterfly as she spun and flew up. With a sweep of her leg, she kicked a werewolf's head. The head was separated from the body. It smashed into the wall and broke into pieces. The attacks of the 3 members of the Yen family were also very strong. They had fought with the werewolves and vampires before, so they knew their strength. Many enemies fell wherever they went. The banquet hall became a scene of carnage. It was a mess. Corpses were everywhere, and the smell of blood filled the air. The ordinary guests had already rushed out screaming, but some who were not afraid of death hid at the door and peeked. They were really good at watching. The funniest thing was that the groom abandoned the bride and ran faster than anyone else. He was tall and had long legs. He squeezed out of the door in a few steps, leaving only the screaming bride. Tang Jing locked onto his target. Seeing that Nicholas wanted to blend into the crowd and rush out, he leaped into the air and pointed at his back. Hearing the sound behind him, Nicholas's face turned pale. He had really met his Waterloo this time. He originally thought that he could capture Tang Jing easily. He even had Song Yu, who knew him well. He also watched as Tang Jing died. But the strange thing was that he actually came back to life. Without a doubt, he must have faked his death and fooled him. This was a great humiliation, and it made him fly into a rage. Later, he found that the Japanese did not gain any benefits, and they were killed until they threw away their helmets and armor, and almost all of them were wiped out. He then realized that Tang Jing was not alone, but had many strong reinforcements. This time, he came to Hua Xia from thousands of miles away. It was really dangerous. It turned out that he had always been a frog at the bottom of the well. Hua Xia was not as simple as he thought. As for killing Tang Jing to avenge his son, he did not hold any hope for the time being. So he hurriedly changed locations overnight and finally arrived at the embassy. Speaking of which, the vampires had been plotting for centuries. The Atlantic Empire had a great relationship with the vampires. Many of the high-ranking officials were vampires, and the ambassador to China was one of them. Nicholas already knew that all the airports were being monitored. It was like an inescapable net. Only then did he gradually realize how powerful Tang Jing was in China, to the point that even the government chose to turn a blind eye to it. There was another reason why he did not rush to escape, and that was the dragon's roar that night. He had heard from various sources that the sound was the legendary dragon's roar, which meant that there was a dragon hiding in the capital. The dragon was Hua Xia's spiritual totem, the most mysterious existence. It turned out that it really existed in the world. Nicholas understood what this meant. If he could find this dragon, it would be of great help to him. So he took the risk and stayed, waiting for an opportunity to find this dragon. However, he did not expect Tang Jing to be so determined to break into the embassy and start a massacre. With just a few people, he defeated the vampires and werewolves he brought. Only then did he realize how wrong his decision to stay was, so he ran away without thinking. As for the dragon, he did not care about it for the time being. Saving his life was more important. However, Tang Jing and the others were too anxious to escape the hotel. They happened to see many foreign faces in the banquet hall, so they were prepared to slip through. Unexpectedly, Tang Jing's judgment was very accurate. Seeing that the plan had failed, he had no choice but to continue running. However, how could Tang Jing give him this chance? His finger fiercely pointed at his back, and the power was no less than that of a sword. Nicholas had no choice but to counterattack with his sword. The War Soul Sword pierced towards Tang Jing from a very strange angle. After Nicholas obtained the War Soul Sword, he could not put it down. He understood that it was a divine weapon, far better than his own, so he kept it for his own use. War Soul Sword. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.